Hi, hello, how are you? Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk to some real people about some real things, living real lives, doing real stuff. This is the Working Perspectives podcast. I'm Matt Lavelle, accompanied by my heterosexual life partner, party boy Pete McCormick, and our guest today is the incredible, the amazing, the fantastic, the fearless Frank Palumbo. Party boy Pete, how you feeling, babe?
I'm feeling pretty good, Bartholomew. I'm ready to get started.
Beautiful. Me too. All right. So you can find us on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Working Perspectives Podcast. You can join us on the Twitter and the TikTok at Working P Pod and get some fun in with us on Instagram at Working Perspectives Podcast. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, then email us at workperspectives@gmail.com. All right. Let's get this thing started. Let's go.
It's all objective to be effective by voices societies. Working perspective, exploring your day and how you get paid. Launching a new episode every Tuesday. Your day can transform while we inform with new episodes available on every platform. So check out our vibe and how we get live. Then do us a solid. Share and subscribe. We'll just share it. We'll just share it. We'll just share it. Working perspectives.
All right. Peter Hosen. Okay.
What's going on, Matty boy?
All right. So, as you know, the bastard, son of a bitch, bastard, Tom Lavelle, the challenge date has been dropped, a.k.a. asshole to all our listeners, a.k.a. Captain Jerkbeard, a.k.a. son of a biscuit. He has come up with the date for the challenge, October 2nd. It'll be going down at the Land of the Free and the home of the Brave, Graham's Pub in beautiful Roxborough. You'll be able to stream it live with us on Instagram, and we'll have it on YouTube as well. But I will win the rights back to the show because, Pete, goddammit, this is our show.
Matt, it is Jocktober, and a jock is going to beat the crap out of a jerk. By God, I can feel it coming on.
Jocktober is back in action. We'll definitely have some stuff, lead-up stuff, so make sure you stay tuned on our YouTube channel and everything like that to stay posted on all the lead-up stuff we have going into it. But this is the match of the ages. This is the showdown that they're all been waiting for. Forget the Thrill in Manila. Forget the Rumble in the Jungle. Forget Pacquiao Mayweather. Forget them all. This is what the people want. This is what the fans want. This is the dream match. It's a lifetime in the making, and it's finally going to come to fruition October 2nd in the Land of the Free and the home of the Brave, Graham's Pub. So,
Matt, I was watching Cinderella Man this weekend, and I'm looking at Russell Crowe, and that's all I see is you, and I just look at that Maxie the Bear, such a jerky jerkstein, and I'm like, that's asshole right there.
Yeah, it's totally asshole. Are you kidding me? Especially with that big schnoz he's got.
Yeah.
You son of a bitch. Yeah, what a bastard. All right, nice. Okay, so let's keep it moving. We got a really, really great guest today, Pete. Our guest today is Fighting Frankie Palumbo. So, all right. So we've talked about, and Pete, you know this place very well, Henzo Gracie PA Academy in Hatfield, where I teach boxing. You did jiu-jitsu there, all this stuff. But I'll tell you what, this place, as long as I've been there, and I've been teaching there for almost 14 years, a lot of lives have come in there and been changed. And Frank is no exception. So I will say this. Frank, he's a nice guy. He's a very well-spoken guy, but he's not like he's not like a screamer, attention-seeking kind of guy. He's just there to do the work, and he works. No one works harder, and he's there to get his stuff in and learn. And
you don't hear a lot of hi-yahs on the heavy bag.
No, he's there to do his shit, but he's also not like, screaming and yelling. So for the first year and a half that he was there, I called him Mike by accident. But the thing is, I've been punched in the head so many times that names are a difficult thing for me. But he had told me it was Frank several times, and he just looks like a fucking Mike. It's not my fault. What do you want me to do? Right? I don't know, So either way, So Frank is a little bit of an older gentleman. You'll find out he's married. He has 7 kids. He's been around the block for a couple of years. He's been in the Philadelphia Police Department, or he's married. He has 7 kids. He's been around the block. He's been a policeman for 30 years, almost 30 years. He's, been protecting people for a long, long time. But he didn't come to the gym until a little later. But he came with goals and aspirations, and he came because he wanted to accomplish something. So
it's the best way to enter any endeavor is with goals set out, something to accomplish.
Yeah. And honestly, one of the biggest things with this is coming in there with, you need for like ferociousness and an animosity to go after these goals. You can't just say them and forget. You need to have the ambition, and it takes a lot of commitment, and you need to have you need to have the want and the need to accomplish these goals, because it takes a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
It's tough to work a full shift all day, come home, have 7 kids, then go do your road work and your shadow boxing, and then also wake up every morning and do your calisthenics before you drive 40 minutes to your job.
And man, it's not just goals; it's attainable goals. You want to push yourself, but you want to make sure that it's something you can do, so that way you don't get frustrated.
Yes, and honestly, I'll tell you what, it's honestly, I've been along with him for the ride, and it's been an incredible journey. So, all right, so Frank's been at the gym for a couple of years, right? And after a while, I stopped getting his name wrong, and we've been working together and things like that. Then he comes up to me. He calls me coach. I tell him to call me Matt, but you can call me coach. It's fine. But either way, he's like, look, coach, they do a thing. So the Philadelphia Police Department does a thing where they used to be the cops versus the firemen in a boxing match, right? And I'd actually cornered this thing a few times for different guys, right? So Frank said, I think it's Blue Flame is the name of the organization. It's like the police organization that does it. It used to be the cops versus the firemen, and now it's more, I don't know if I think there's only a few firemen that do it, but there's still a ton of cops, men and women, that do this.
All right.
So what they do is they rent out the armory in the Northeast, right?
Okay.
I've fought at the armory. You've been in the armory. I've cornered.
I think I grew up next to the armory.
You did. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. And it seats a couple thousand people. And there's a difference between a crowd of a couple thousand people and a crowd of a couple thousand cops going freaking nuts that have been tailgating all day, getting ready for this thing to kick off. They had the National Guard there. They did the whole flags and ceremony and everything like that. It's like you're so freaking pumped, So,
oh, yeah.
So Frank calls me. He comes up to me at class. He's like, look, I got a fight. Should I take it? And I was like, well, how do you feel? He's like, I want to do it. And I was like, well, if you want to do it, then we're going to fucking do it. But I'll tell you this. If I see you're not holding up on your end with the training and the commitment, then I'm fucking pulling you, because there's
don't want anybody getting hurt. You got to go all in.
Number one thing. And that's honestly the owner of the gym, great friend of mine, kind of like a mentor to me, Rich Latta. I've been to a bunch of gyms, and there's a lot of gyms that'll treat you like a bag of meat, and they're trying to get a payday out of you. Rich was he really kicks back against that, where he's all about the safety of his fighters is paramount. That's why his gym is so successful and has so many guys that are healthy and doing well and thriving, is because the fighters come first. He's not going to throw anyone to a fight that they don't think that they can either win or do well or be safe, right?
Yep.
So, all right. So we're a few weeks out. So I'm like, all right, Frank, it's time to start camp, right? So we're getting into camp. Frank then goes all in. He's doing his road work every day. He's doing his calisthenics. He's showing up for training with me. He's going to classes. And then after classes, we're staying to do training, and we develop a game plan. And I'm telling you, this game plan was fucking money. Pepper 'em, get out. Pepper 'em, get out. Pepper 'em, get out.
Golden out.
In and out, brother. That's it.
Rocky 3, baby. Get.
That dude, you are 100% right. Don't hang out to get the fucking power going. Get in, get out. Get in, get out. So we do and he shreds down. I'm telling you, he was fucking lean, mean Frankie Palumbo. He looked great. He was honestly, it's crazy to think now, the fighter he is now, that even back then, that was Frank at that time. It was the best I'd ever seen him. But the Frank now would drop that Frank in a fucking heartbeat. You know what I mean?
So it didn't go away after that fight. The passion stayed in him.
Oh yeah, big time. So, and it's even stronger now. I feel like it's legit. It changes your life. Like, because when you first start the training, you see it as like this insurmountable insurmountable mountain that's like, oh God, it's forever climbing, but it's not. It just becomes your life. Like, you kind of like doing it, you know? Like, if you like the training that you're doing, it just becomes fun and just becomes something you want to do every day. You know what I mean? And like, seeing the results, I tell people that come in, there's no more motivation than seeing results. Because when you start seeing results, you go, okay, this works. And I just fucking do this.
Back, you know?
Yeah, you're 100% right. So we're getting ready. We're training, right? We develop our game plan. And Frank gets down, lean and mean. Best I'd seen him at that point, right? And it's fight night, right? So we go to the armory in the Northeast. I brought my brother-in-law in the corner with me. So we're in the locker room. So I'll tell you this, every fight I've ever had, I've either been the headliner, the co-main event, or like one of the last two fights, right?
All right.
I'm a heavier guy, right? You're always at the end. You know the deal. We're always at the end of the card. They don't put the heavy guys first ever.
The crowd loves the big boys.
They love them. But Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, you know him, you love him?
Oh, right? Yeah. Who doesn't?
He's famous for saying, if he's not finishing the show, he wants to start the show. Right?
Oh yeah, you want to be that firecracker, that spark.
Everyone remembers the first fight if it's a good one. So when we got there, I found out Frankie was the first fight, and I was like, let's fucking go. Right? I was like, that's perfect. We're gonna fucking stay hot and get him going. So I get there, we get in there, we have all our gear. I start wrapping his hands, right? And like, you know, we're wrapping his hands. A couple guys are coming over because he's a captain. They're like, hey, Cap, you're going to do great. All right, Cap, come on, Cap. You know, and like, I'm wrapping the hands. I'm like, all right, guys, fucking time to back off a little bit. Right. And then I get his hands wrapped and I'm like, all right, let's get these things fucking wet. So we're throwing. I'm trying to get his hands as wet as possible, get those wraps really heavy. Right. And then he's the first fight with brand new gloves. So I'm like, let's fucking crush these gloves a little bit, try and hit him a little, you know, like, we're doing all this stuff, and guys keep coming up like, all right, Cap, you're going to do it. All right, Frank, come on. You're going to, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, you know, like, guys, fucking back off.
And I don't know if people realize this, but like the older you get, the more you have to warm up. Some people are like, oh, you don't want to warm up, you're going to waste all your energy, but it's the opposite. You need to get everything loose and warmed up. Like otherwise you'll gas out right away. That adrenaline dump and just the tightness of the muscle. So warm up, like the older you get, is paramount.
Oh, dude, you are not kidding. It is essential, especially too. It's Frankie's first big fight, so it's kind of like I need him to
calm him down.
Yeah, 100% focus. I still want him to be ready to go. So we're warming up, and we're the first fight. So they did like a parade of the fighters to the ring, along with the National Guard and like the people who did the national anthem. Right. But because we were the first fight, we didn't do that. We stayed on deck. Right.
Right. Yep.
So we got to watch it. And I'm not going to lie. I've been to I had season tickets for the Eagles and I've been to a ton of fights and everything like that. When they do the national anthem, if it's done right, the fucking crowd, everyone is ready to go. Like it gets you so like when they're at the end and the land of the free and the place is going. You know what I mean? Like, so that's how this dude, I'm telling you, it's cops. They've been going all day. They've been looking forward to this. It's a big event that they get every year. They've been, you know, having some fun, tailgating, doing their thing, right? The way they do it is they have the bleachers completely sold out, both sides completely sold out. And then they sell seats on the floor. So there's floor seats that are right in front of the ring and around the ring. So you can get floor seats that come with like food and drinks and stuff. Yeah. And then you can get the bleacher seats. Everything is jam-packed. It's a packed house, right? And we're fucking going nuts. So this thing goes off. The place is erupting. And I'm like, Frank, let's fucking go. Like I saw, like we're warming up. We're doing our thing. So Frank's guy, he goes. So the guy we're fighting goes out first. So he walks out. I believe he goes out first. Maybe he did. I'm not sure, but I believe he did. So he did. So he walks out first. He gets to the ring, and then we're going. And this was my mistake. So when you're cornering for a guy, the fighter walks first usually, and then unless they're like it's like the Brazilian parade thing that they'll do sometimes, but it's usually the fighter walks first and the corner guys walk behind him. Normal thing, right? So for this one, I let Frank walk first. We're walking to the ring. And he's like high-fiving people on the way to the ring, and he's doing like some, stuff, and like, all right, they're like, and it's like everyone we're walking by, and I'm like, God,
he knows everybody. He's a popular man.
Yeah, and I'm like, God damn it, Frank, fucking eyes forward here, let's go, But I didn't want to.
I don't have time to tape you up again.
Yeah, and I didn't want to ruin his thing because it's like the music's going, he's into it. We got him a good mental.
This is what
spot.
He worked for,
Exactly, right. So we get into the corner, and I'm like, all right, buddy, fucking here we go. Lock in. It's just you and him, and you're hearing my voice, and that's it, right? So we're in the corner. We're getting ready. I'm like, look, just go, do your thing. You should be proud of yourself that you're here. You did a lot of work to do this. Now let's fucking go. Stick to the game plan. So he goes out there. The first round follows the game plan and fucking is honestly, bro, 10 more seconds in the round. The guy's going down. It's almost a 10-8 round. The guy didn't lay a glove on him. Frank was smoking him, right? Frank then comes back to the corner, and I see a look on Frank's face. I'm like, this son of a bitch better stick to the fucking game plan, right? Because I'm like, I know he's in his mind. He's like, oh, that was easier than I thought it would be, right? And
adrenaline's flying high. You're feeling good. The wind is behind your back.
Yeah, and it's a really good first round. Looked really good, right? Then he comes back to the corner. We get some water in. I'm telling him game plan. Stick to what you're doing. Really good stuff. Add some more of this. Take away some of this. Blah, blah, blah. Normal stuff. Goes back out. He sticks to the game plan a little bit, but then he's a cop, and he's a man, and he's a fucking brawler. So he eventually stays in and starts banging, right? And legit, it's him and this guy. They're standing in the middle of the ring, going blow for fucking blow, back and forth, back and forth. And the guy he's going against starts grabbing.
What are you doing, Rock?
I was like, hit the one in the middle, right? And he's grabbing the dude he's going against is grabbing the back of Frank's head and holding on to him, trying to hit him.
He's a dirty clincher.
Yeah, and Frank's trying to get away, and I'm screaming my head off at the ref. Right? I'm like, fucking, you need to take a point. You know what I mean? But they're not the points really don't matter,
Yeah,
but,
amateur boxing, the refs aren't exactly doing.
Yeah. So Frank ends up, because he brawled, he ended up losing the second round. So he comes back to the corner, and I'm like, all right, Frank, this is time to get back to the fucking game plan. And I can see he's in the mode, and I've been there too, where it's instincts take over. You know what I mean? And it's tough to think in those scenarios, right? But so Frank goes out there and he falls into the same trap of the guy kept grabbing the back of his head. They kept brawling in the middle of the ring, back and forth, back and forth. I thought he won the third round, right? But there was a slip that they called a knockdown, but it was a slip. Yeah. So he ends up losing the third round. But I'll tell you this, he fucking fought to the very end, went out on his shield like a true fucking warrior. And obviously everyone's bummed after a loss, but I'll tell you, I couldn't have been prouder for a guy who'd never boxed before in his life, came into the gym maybe 2 years before that, right? Fully committed, took a fight on with a younger guy who this guy he fought had 5 fights. You know?
Wow. Yeah. So he'd been in there before. He was ready to go.
Yeah, he knew what was going on. So he'd been in with this guy. And so Frank gets in there, first fight, fought a guy who had a few fights before, and Frank really did really, really well. And I know at the end he was kicking himself, should have stuck to the game plan, but I was so fucking proud of him. He did so great. And dude, tell you what, it was I didn't see all of the fights, but it was fucking up there for fight of the night as well, because it was a barn burner. People were loving it. The whole crowd was into it. First fight of the night, really did well. So he's doing great now. He's a captain in the police, in the police department. He's got 7 kids. He's married. I know he's doing great, and he's, everything's going well, and he's having fun, and he comes to the gym, and he's training, and he's doing his thing. Frank, I just want to ask, have you seen the movie Bohemian Rhapsody? And if yes, what do you think of that piece of shit movie?
I have seen it. and I thought it was a good movie.
Yes,
Great.
that one for the good guys.
Oh my God!
I was going over this bio sheet. I knew I had a winner in my pocket right there.
Oh
well, I'm a Queen fan.
So
same. So am I.
I am too. Don't get me wrong. I freaking love Queen. Love them, right? But fucking not that movie. All right, Jesus.
Look, I never got to see. I was born in '85, so I didn't get to see that performance. So when they ended the movie with that performance, I'd always heard about this is what made Queen great was this live performance, and you know what? It lived up to the hype to me.
Well, some of us. So, all right. Well, that's disappointing. But Frank, how are you, pal?
Great Coach
man.
Matt.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. So, how is everything going with you? Everything's going good? Family's good?
Everything's good.
Nice, man. Nice. So, I know you don't like talking about that fight too much, but I love it, man. That was such a great night, and I was so proud of you. And you really, really, I wish we had film for people to see because you're a fucking blood and guts warrior out there. People don't know Mickey Ward lost the two, out of the 3 fights he had with Gotti, he lost 2 of them. People don't know that. Just because they didn't care, because the fights were fucking incredible. You know what I mean? Like, you can still lose and win the fight at the same time, you know?
I don't mind talking about it, and thank you for the kind words.
Hey, man, of course. You earned it. So I got you here, and I know everything's going great. So I want to start real quick because we have some really good shit to get into. So I want to get the memory lane segment out of the way. So we're going to jump right into our new hot segment, Hitting the Streets. It's called the Memory Lane.
Where do these bizarre memories come from?
So in English, if you say this is lame, when you're describing something, what you are saying is that it's not cool, it's not awesome, it's not interesting.
So this is where we're going to bring up a topic from the 90s. We're going to discuss it, and then we're going to vote to see if the topic, if it's still totally radical tubular bruh, or if it's lame city. So being that you're the guest and tradition is, Frank, what is the memory lane topic you have brought us?
All right. Can we cheat a little and go back to the 80s, or do we have to say the 90s?
You have carte blanche. You can go back to whenever you want, buddy.
All right. Ninjas.
Whoa.
Oh.
Whoa. Okay.
Now, is this the same as, is it still cool, or is it not cool, or is this different?
Ninjas are never not the coolest thing ever. I'll say that right now. Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that. So my brother, Asshole, we had brought him up on the show earlier. He's a real scumbag, but he did do a cool move. So he has my godson is his son. And then he has 2, like a niece and a nephew, and they were all spending the night at his house the last weekend. And he told me, he's like, I played them a movie and it went over pretty good. He played 3 Ninjas. Do you remember the movie 3 Ninjas, Pete?
Oh, who doesn't remember 3 Ninjas, man?
Yeah, I don't
was
know.
Tum Tum.
Yeah, Tum Tum. Yeah. I don't know, Frank. That might have been a little past your time, but that was when like the ninja craze was at an all-time high. You know what I mean? So
I go back more to Sho Kosugi in the mid to late 80s.
Oh, baby. What was it called? Kosugi?
Sho Kosugi. SHO Kosugi. He was the big star in the mid to late 80s.
And he was and that's really when like obviously Karate Kid had come out and was massive. Like that's when karate itself was mainstream, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And you had Jackie Chan hitting the scene. You had the Muscles from Brussels hitting the scene. You know, like Bloodsport. Is there a better fucking movie than Bloodsport? Like, come on, you know?
So I'm looking up Sho Kosugi, and you know where you might know him from, Matt, is he was in Bad News Bears Go to Japan. He was a kata demonstrator. I don't know if it was a big role, but that one stands out to me.
Whoa. Love Bad News Bears. I love all the Bad News Bears, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, these are like very 80s ninja movies, what you would see in the theater.
Dude, I'll tell you what. The one thing that so I know they did a remake of Bad News Bears, which was a fucking disgrace because in the original Bad News Bears, this is how like not to mention like the language that they would use and things like that. But Walter Matthau, I think it's like in the first scene or one of the opening scenes, he pulls up, he cracks a beer in his car. Instead of taking a sip of the beer, he pours out some of it then opens a flask and pours the whiskey from the flask into the beer because he didn't want to drink the beer if it didn't have whiskey in it. I was like, this is a fucking movie.
It's a hardcore Boilermaker.
Dude, I'm telling you. I'm fucking telling you, man. That was some gangster stuff. You know, they don't make them like that anymore. But that movie, classic. Kelly Leak, all-time character. All-timer. All right, but we were talking.
I actually had a thing recently. So, you know, like I quit my job not that long ago.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I'm a tax accountant, so we deal with tax codes. And a lot of codes, you know, they're subsections and everything. So you have like 3 parentheses J. So my boss had asked me over Skype, you know, like, hey, have you looked up the new 163J regulations? But when he put the J in the parentheses, it turned into an emoji of a little ninja doing a spinning back kick. Oh. And the immediate follow-up from my boss was, what the fuck was that?
Oh, that's the best. Frank,
I was like, I don't know, but I appreciate it, Pop.
Yeah. No, that is great, especially too when is he a little older fella?
Yeah. So he had no idea what an emoji was. He was like, what the hell is it?
Yeah. That's the best when you get someone who's like, what the fuck is this bull? Who's fucking smiling here? I don't care. So, all right, Frank, what about you? Ninjas. Let's talk about them. What do you got?
All right. I was into karate from, I guess, about 1984 Karate Kid period through like about 87-ish.
Yeah.
Got up to my blue belt. And, of course, that segued into ninja stuff.
Sure.
Like you guys are a lot younger than me, so you probably don't remember when Asian World was in Center City in Chinatown.
No.
Well, we'd go up to Asian World and get nunchucks, and you could buy Chinese stars. Chinese stars were huge.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, babe. Throwing stars? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think your generation is the reason my generation couldn't have them.
The cops never bothered us, and they had them on every table in Chinatown. We just went up and bought them, and we would practice on dartboards or telephone poles or whatever. So my friends and I kind of thought we were ninjas for a while. You know, we knew a little bit of karate, and the high point of it was probably Halloween, like 1986. We really like dressed completely as ninjas. We got the outfits from Asian World, the Chinese stars. We had bow and arrows, quivers. You name a sword. I actually had a
blowguns.
I don't think we had a blowgun. Everybody that did. So we were really into it, you know. So actually, I had a cousin. I still do. I have a cousin in Jersey, out in the Pine Barrens.
Yeah,
and we used to pretend we were ninjas in the Pine Barrens.
Dude,
and we actually, my cousins. I don't think it ever made it to cinema. But he got my aunt's video camera, and we actually started making a ninja movie.
Oh, dude! I would love to see footage because so we'll say. Well, I mean, this will obviously be coming up later. But Frank grew up in South Philly, right? So
with the last name Palumbo, no way.
Yeah, nice Irish guy like Frank Palumbo. Yeah. But
I don't know if you know this, but there's a bunch of stuff named after Palumbo all down in South Philly. There's like a school, and
it's all over, right? Isn't there a Palumbo Circle? Am I
there's
wrong?
There's a Palumbo Park. There's a Palumbo.
Okay. But yeah. So, but either way, I would love to see footage of a South Philly karate dojo in the 80s. Are you shitting me? Could you imagine, right? Like all those young teenage Italian guys with the dirt stashes. Oh yeah. Coming
out there. It's Shin at 7th and Oregon in South Philly.
What was the instructor Asian or was he okay?
He's actually pretty famous. J.C. Shin, I think he passed away a few years ago. He was an older guy when I was a kid. But he's actually pretty famous in the Korean karate world.
Oh wow. Nice.
Wow. Yeah. Dude, I'll tell you what, my dad did that stuff. He was stationed in Korea when he was in the military, and he was doing he did the Taekwondo and things like that. But man, that's pretty cool. So I thought, I mean, to be fair, you know, and being in the MMA universe, the karate stuff does get shit on. But I thought when parents tell me their kids do it, I was like, it's not a bad thing. It's great for discipline.
I mean, George St. Pierre actually started out with a karate background. So did obviously Lyoto Machida, kind of came back when he took the belt at light heavyweight, kind of showed everyone like, hey, there's a difference between, point kata and actual full contact. I think what it was just that it kind of became what he called McDojoized. Basically, everyone had it, but, people weren't taking it as seriously as some people did. But there were definitely dojos where people took it seriously, and it was legit.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, my uncle did some time in prison, and one of the first things he did after he got out was join a Tiger Schulman's karate, and we were like, "Why? What's the deal?" And he's like, 98% of the clientele are female at the Tiger Schulman's karate. So I was like, "Oh, makes sense. All right, now that you mention it, so nice. All right, well, while we have it, I'll tell you what too. Like, let's be honest." Ninjas were like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Beverly Hills Ninja, Three Ninjas. Like, could we?
I want to ask this, Frank. So you were into all this stuff. The weapons that Raphael used, the size, are they actual good weapons? Because I always feel like he got the short end of the stick. I'm seeing like a bow. I'm seeing swords. I'm seeing nunchucks, and I see this guy with two little knives. I'm like, he got the short end of the deal.
He's like basically got some like barbecue forks.
I don't know very much about size. Some of the I think the black belts started learning to use them when I was at karate.
Okay.
I never used the sai myself. I was kind of a nunchuck guy.
I
think we were
chucker,
because that was Michelangelo. They were the coolest. Like that's what you wanted to do. Like the whole behind the back, over, under.
Yeah, I guess size don't matter, huh?
Correct.
I'm not gonna lie, Raphael was the best Ninja Turtle. Either way. So
he was always grumpy because he had the shittiest weapon.
Dude, also because he knew that they were turtles and there were no female turtles. So he's like,
that's a good point.
He was a recovering drug addict and no female turtles. And April O'Neil was giving him the cold shoulder. The guy had some problems, He had to deal with Leonardo being a freaking tool, It's like, geez, he just wants to fight some Foot Clans and he can't even do that. So either way. But all right, so we were talking ninjas. So let's get a vote in here. Frank, what do you think? Are they ninjas rad or lame?
Can I qualify it?
I mean, do your thing, yeah.
All right. If you actually think you're a ninja, they're lame. If you're in it for the fun of it, they're cool.
Yeah,
they're rad. Yeah.
Peter Hosen, your thoughts?
So I'm going to qualify it too. Like, I'm sure ninjas were cool in the 80s and the 90s, but nowadays they've been ruined. Has anybody seen the remake of The Karate Kid? The reason the original Karate Kid was so great is because Mr. Miyagi seemed like he was kind of like a feeble older guy, and he was beating the shit out of 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
In the new one, Jackie Chan is still ripped, and he's beating up 12-year-olds. I'm like, what? This is not This is no Mr. Miyagi. Out of here.
Yeah.
I have
Old
not seen
Ninja's great, new Ninja's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to see the new one. It's it breaks your heart. You are 100% correct, because like Johnny from the original Karate Kid was legit juicing, and like he was totally buffed up on some sniff and like all this stuff going against.
And it's the guy from Happy Days. You don't think he's going to be able to beat up a bunch of teenagers?
Yeah, like legit, these kids are ripped in shape, like working out all the time and filled with like racist hatred from the guy, their leader guy, and Miyagi just fucking breaks them a new one. No sweat. That's some real talent.
Jackie Chan. We saw him in Shanghai Nights. We saw him with Chris Tucker just stopping organized crime, and he can't beat up an 11-year-old. We knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. So I will say this. If you haven't seen Cobra Kai, you need to watch it.
I have.
Oh man. Yeah. Whole new dude. I'll tell you what. Fucking LaRusso cheated. I'll say it right now. Cheated. So either way. So let's round it out though. I'm in the same boat. Back in the day, ninjas were rad. Now they fucking lamed them out. So that's what we're gonna do. All right. So that was another rousing segment of Memory Lane. For anyone listening, if you want to send in some Memory Lane suggestions, you can do it to us on Instagram at Working Perspectives Podcast and on the Twitter at Working P Pod. All right. So we got some really good shit today. Let's get into it. So like I said, our guest today, Fighting Frankie Palumbo, was born in South Philadelphia, grew up in South Philadelphia. He went to Catholic school till first grade, then public school till third grade, then Christian school from fourth to eighth grade. And then he went to a place called the Center City Academy all the way through high school, right?
All right.
Yes.
Growing up, he did a little basketball.
Frank, I'm sorry. What was the Center City Academy? Right? Was it like a magnet school? Was it like an art school, or what was it?
No, it's was kind of a college prep school. It was affiliated with a pretty prominent church my parents went to, and I don't think it ever had more than 100 kids.
And so, is this a private school, or was it was it public?
No, it was private.
Private, okay.
Not anything exclusive like Friends Select or anything.
Yeah.
It's all right. I mean, you know, it's all fun. I mean, but still, I mean, it's better than what you would get, right?
Yes.
That's not a bad deal. Nice. All right. So you did Center City Academy. Growing up for sports, we already talked, you did some karate, but you played basketball a little bit. Then you did like the normal playground games, like football and all these things. But I do want to talk about this. So you came up in South Philadelphia in the time when the greatest hockey team that's ever lived, the Philadelphia Flyers, were at the peak of the NHL. So you went from hockey not being really like, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. Then the Flyers hit, then it's everyone's playing hockey everywhere all the time. Is that right?
That's right. And my first memory of the Flyers is probably my grandmom taking me to the parade. I forget which one it was because they won 2 years in a row, 74, 75, 75, 76.
I think I think 75, 74, 75, I believe, but I'm probably wrong. No,
Yeah,
right.
I think the titles
75.
were won in 75 and 76. So it would have been 74, 75, and 75, 76.
You're right. You're right. I'm an idiot. Yep. Keep going.
Well, and Frank, even bigger than that, who else did they beat?
What?
The Red Army team that was destroying everybody in the NHL.
Yeah,
that is true. That was huge. And at the time, people actually had a reference point for what communism was and that whole struggle between the Soviet Union and the U.S. And I just don't think it would mean as much if it happened again today.
Oh, yeah, during the 70s. Yeah, because, I mean, that was, you had the tensions with Vietnam and all that kind of stuff. There was all the Cold War stuff going on.
Yeah. It was 2 minutes to midnight through the 60s and 70s. The world almost ended a few times.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, everyone's fucking building bunkers and has their hazmat suits and everything ready. But then, the big bad Russian team showed up and couldn't handle, three.
And Matt, I think going into that, they had actually played the NHL All-Star team and just crushed them. And they had crushed a bunch of teams, and they eventually played the Flyers. And Bobby Clark went out there and I think broke their captain's ankle with his stick in the corner. And the Red Army was like, "We're not going out there. These are dirty players. There's no way." And Ed Snyder said, "You don't get back out on that ice. We're not fucking paying you." And you know what they did? They got back on that ice and they got their ass kicked.
So it turned out to be a little more capitalist than they thought, huh? Yeah.
Look, they might not be big fans of the U.S., but they like that Yankee dollar, them greenbacks.
Damn right.
Our Canadians did a good job making us look good.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Look, everybody needs their little brother every once in a while,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Kidding me? They wanted the same thing. Sure. That really is. Canada is a little brother to the U.S., but they were, I mean, I loved watching the documentary they had on HBO about it because there was, dude, Schultzy was so right when he's like, I got a little wrapped up in it. When you're in the third period and you're up 5-1 and the whole stands is screaming, Schultz, they don't want you to go out there to score a goal. You know what I mean? They want him to go out there and freaking throw down and let's go. But that was what a great squad.
Well, I also don't know if people realize this, but what's the big hockey movie with Paul Newman?
Slapshot.
So Slapshot was actually made to make fun of the Flyers. It was supposed to be satire, commentary, do you want hockey to turn into this? But it turns out it was pretty popular. So,
dude.
They also appeared on The Simpsons. Homer Simpson goes to hell, and there's a jury from hell, and the jury box is filled with the 74-75 Philadelphia Flyers.
That's the best. So true. But it was when they showed it in the documentary, it was like a thing. The whole city got taken over by Flyer fever, right? Kids that were playing baseball on the playground before never saw a hockey stick in their life. The next month everyone's got a hockey stick, everyone's playing. Is that kind of how it went, Frank?
Yeah, that's right. I don't remember if I ever played on skates, but me and my friends always played outside in sneakers.
Yeah.
Between the same two poles, we played Nerf football.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense. Like, if you look back on it, this was really before Mike Schmidt and Carlton had taken off. So, like, at that point, the Phillies hadn't been good forever, if ever, since the Whiz Kids.
Yeah.
The Eagles were in the dumps, obviously, like since they had Chuck Bednarik.
Yeah.
The Sixers, I'm not sure, because I think it was that was probably pre Dr. J. So yeah, they probably were in that. So like it was a championship starved city,
Yeah.
Finally, and the Flyers were actually the bottom of the rung when they first came out. They were in there. There was 8 teams, and the Blues used to beat the shit out of them. And that's when Ed Snyder said, "Look, I'll lose, but my players aren't going to get the crap kicked out of them." And that's when he drafted Schultz and who was it, Bob the Mad Dog or whatever, all those guys.
Hound Kelly, Bob
the Hound
Kelly. Yeah. And then what's his face? I remember the one guy said he used to call him Machine Gun Kelly because he was throwing like these fast things, and Schultz, the hammer was just throwing that freaking meat claw at him. But yeah, plus two, talk about a couple of years of greatness for the city of Philadelphia, because 74, 75, you got the Flyers, 75, 76, you got the Flyers, and Rocky came out.
Yeah.
Then in 80, I think Rocky 2 would come out in 78 or 79. And then 1980, you got the Phillies, so like it was a nice couple spans there. And then, you had the Sixers and the Eagles Eagles didn't win in the Super Bowl, but they went. And then the Sixers would win in 83, I believe.
And weaving in and all out of those years was Philly's own Smoking Joe Frazier.
Smoking Joe Frazier. Yeah. Okay. So hockey was a big thing then. You got, like we said, you got your blue belt in karate. And then also during this time, you were rocking out in a garage band. Now, you told me the name of this band, and I'm not going to lie, it sounded freaking awesome. So please, get the story behind it, Frank, and then hit Pete with the name, and I can't wait to see his reaction because it's pretty great.
This is the late 80s, probably about 2 years, 88, 89, maybe 90. My buddy who lived across the street from me in South Philly, his name's Vince, but I call him Dirty. We would travel after we got our licenses out to see my cousin Steve and
was this the same cousin that filmed the movie? Okay. Yep. Okay.
The ninja cousin. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
He's actually he's an accomplished author, and he's a history teacher. So he's a really neat guy. He lives in Cool. So we were traveling about 25 miles out to Atco once a week or so, just to play in the basement or the garage. So we called it The Distance.
That was the name of the band. I'm not gonna lie.
He's going the distance.
That's the whole thing. I was like, that's just, as far as 80s band names go, that was just fucking it. The Distance. Following up for, you were following Scorpion and all those guys. Yeah.
Followed by Foreigner and Journey, we have The Distance.
Yeah, that's badass, man. That's awesome. So, all right, so let's get into some of this stuff, though. So, before you were, I guess it was kind of in the same time frame when you were in the rock band, maybe a little before you were in the rock band, you were roofing, right? So, So, roofing was first job, and we've talked about this before on the show, and a couple weeks ago, we had aired an episode with Mr. Carl Bowers where he talked about being a roofer, and we had brought this up, and I said this, and I stand by it, where in boxing, right, there's a saying where the only way to train for this shit is to do it. When it comes to jobs like roofing, I think it's the same damn thing. Frank, when you're roofing, what'd you learn? How'd you feel? What'd you think of the job? How tough was it? Let me have it, babe.
I learned that it's a very hard job and that there's a lot of guys that have to do jobs like that their whole lives. Yep. I'm glad I'm not still doing that, because that is tough work. It's hot as hell in the summer. I didn't do too much of it in the winter because I was in school.
Yeah,
I would have preferred the winter. And I did the grunt work, not complaining about it, but I had to chop through basically lasagna. You have roof after roof after roof, and you have to rip it off, throw it down. Then I had to sweep it up. But I really liked working the kettle. That was fun. I got to learn to work the kettle. And I liked ladders and carrying shit up and down ladders and pulling the bucket up. So it was neat too.
Frank, for our suburban listeners, Philly roofs are a little bit different than those suburban roofs, aren't they? It's not just pulling off some shingles and hammering them back up. There's a lot of heat involved.
Well, yeah, they're mostly flat tops.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Frank.
Some A-frames, but yeah, I think 90% of what I did was probably just your row house flat top roof, where it's just you put the paneling down and then there's a hot coat on top of it.
Dude, that's what I was just wondering that, because I know I'm in a row home, Pete, you're in a row home, and we all, grew up in row homes and things like that. But that's the same. I was thinking the same thing, especially in South Philly. All of them is the same. It's like a tar on the roof, like a tar roof, right?
It's tar.
So is that what you mean when you were working the kettle? Like you're heating up the tar? Was that you?
That's exact. I did some of that. That was actually a treat to work the kettle as compared to chopping.
Really? I thought that would have been. I would think the heat in the summer would make that like the worst job of them all.
But you're not on top of it the whole time. The problem with the kettle in the summer is when you chop through these big cylinders, and if it gets, you want to do it really early in the morning, get it maybe with a couple chops of the axe. Later in the afternoon, it's like chopping through glue. So there's a technique to all of it. And you don't want to get burned. I got like little splashes here and there, and it burns your nerve out before you really even feel it. I heard horror stories from the older guys. They said they noticed I wasn't really afraid of heights. They said always be a little bit afraid, because you're going to walk off a roof. We've seen it happen. I heard a story one time, a guy stepped in a bucket of tar, and I guess the boss had a gun in the truck. He said, please shoot me. And they didn't shoot him, but they had to get him to the emergency room. So they said, you got to listen to the horror stories, because then you'll be careful.
Oh my God.
I swear, if you like saw a chart, there would be like how careful you are versus how good you are at something. And it's like, you're careful. And then like you get less and less careful until something happens. You're like, oh, that's why I was careful all that time.
And I never got hurt.
Hey, knock on wood, being smart there. Jesus. So wait. The guy, oh my God. So the hot tar in the bucket, and the guy stepped in the bucket and the tar just ate his damn foot.
Yeah, I didn't see it. It's just an old timer story, but I could see it happen. And you step off one roof onto a slightly lower roof, and the bucket there,
God. Oh my God, dude. I worked in I worked in kitchens for a long time, and there's a fryer in every kitchen, right? So I remember my one buddy, oddly enough, his name was Frank, and I worked with him at this place called the Pub of Penn Valley, and he told me this story where, this guy because when you're cooking at the end of the night before you get out, you got to clean everything. You know what I'm saying? So he had said he was cleaning the vents behind, above the fryer, and what he would do is he would put trays on top of the fryer, stand on the tray and scrub. And one night it slipped and his foot went into the fryer, right? The hot fryer, and it burned like all his shit off. His foot got stuck in between like the heating vents, and he passed out from the pain. And they had to get his, drain it, get the leg out, and call the freaking, call the people to come. But he was like, dude, I can only imagine the tar was just as bad if the guy's asking to be shot. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Whew. Scary stuff, man. Scary stuff. So, all right. So you're roofing, but you were roofing kind of at a young age, 14 to 16. Were you say would you say that you were getting in good shape? You're growing, you're maturing, but you're doing this roofing. So you're probably freaking.
You're hauling stuff. You're climbing ladders.
Yeah. You're probably the Iron Italian at this point.
I got strong that summer.
Yeah. Put on a little muscle there, huh? What do you think?
I was probably about $160 at the time.
$160. Yeah, solid steel. That's nice. All right. Okay, so I will ask this because our listeners will want to know. You're from South Philly. Obviously, there's let's say a culture in South Philly that likes to cook. I don't know.
Sure.
Right. So do you have a spot down there that's your spot? So a friend of the show and co-host on the Weekend Poppin', Steve Cabot, has told us that there's a spot down there called Dad's Stuffing that's by Potino's. That's just, he's like, this is the fucking spot. This is the spot. You want to get something, you go there. That's the spot. So
it's awesome.
Oh, you've been there. Okay.
Yeah, it's a takeout place. You can't go inside and eat, but if you're having something catered and you want that Italian twist to it, they're fantastic. I've gone there a few times.
Yeah, he said the chicken meatballs with the crab gravy, he's like, it's out of this world. So there you go.
So Frank, what's your go-to sit-down restaurant in South Philly if you're going for Italian?
Yeah,
there's so many good ones.
I wish I could tell you. I haven't lived in South Philly in probably 20+ years, 25 years.
Yeah.
All right, so even better. So what was the place? What was the special occasion place? Like there was christenings, you had first communions, you had graduations. Where was the spot to go?
On a hot date.
I caught the tail end of Palumbo's, and there's no relation except maybe somewhere back in Italy. But he had a place on 9th Street, actually 8th Street, right off the Italian market.
Nice.
Okay.
And it was the place to go from, I guess, the 40s all the way up until the early 90s when it closed and then it burnt down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did it burn down for insurance purposes?
Some people think Italian lightning hit it. But who knows?
Italian lightning? Is that what they call it? When the insurance?
I made that up.
Oh my God, that's great! Italian lightning. Oh, that's great. Okay.
Tony, don't make me burn it down. You said you want to do business with me. This is how we do business.
Yeah.
But a quick funny story about that. Many people over the years, my age or older, have assumed I'm some family connection. So an older lady called me, I guess about 10 or 15 years ago. I guess she got my number out of the phone book when we still had phone books. And she starts going on and on, assuming I'm Mr. Frank Palumbo, who's long since deceased son or grandson.
Yeah.
So she tells me, well, my husband was the band director. He died a few years ago. I'm going through all this memorabilia. I just want Frank's son or grandson to have it, if that's what you are. And she's telling me Sammy Davis, Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, you name it. She's got pictures from the heyday, and I can have it. So I had to be honest. My parents, my parents and grandparents raised me honestly. So I had to I point her in the right direction, which wasn't me. But it was.
There's some Palumbos still around, but I am not one of those.
That's a tough turn, though. I'll tell you, when you can get all that stuff. Like you gave me Frank a couple. I guess it was like a couple months ago. He gave me his grandfather, who rest in peace, recently deceased grandfather. He collected, he had these magazines, and they are old copies of Ring magazine, which is a boxing magazine.
Oh, yeah.
That it used to be like the #1 magazine in America. And the Ring magazine championship used to be considered the #1 belt to have in boxing in your weight class.
Yeah, Max, is that still considered the linear belt where they trace it back to the original champs? Because I know you have there's 3 belts now, but it was always the Ring champ was the actual linear champ.
Yes, they try to at least, but yeah. Usually that's how it goes. Canelo's got it now. So does Tyson Fury.
Oh, he is the pound for pound best. So I mean,
Canelo is the fucking best. But yeah, and they do try to keep that. And they I'll tell you what, because of the corruption in boxing for a long time, Ring magazine was the only honest thing in boxing. So, but either way, Frank gave me a couple of those old magazines, and they're fucking flawless, man. I'll tell you, that type of merchandise you can't buy. I just love the pictures going through, reading it. It was dude, it was awesome. I love all that stuff. But okay, so Frank, you turned down all that sweet merch from Sammy Davis Jr. and Frankie Sinatra and all that stuff. So Palumbo's was your hot spot to eat down there. That was your date spot, doing whatever.
Very, very tail end of it. I went to a place called Mara's. It's still there on Passyunk Avenue.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Mussels were one of the big food. I still like to eat mussels and clams.
Oh, same here.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, a bunch of corner places. I don't even know if they're all still there now or under the same name, but they were all over.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a bunch of I think Ralph's has been there forever, and Dante and Luigi's has been there forever. A saloon, there's a bunch of good spots that have been operating for so many years.
Yeah, and that's good stuff too. Good stuff. Nice. I'll tell you what, nothing like finding a good home cooked Italian spot, man. Whew. Nothing better, brother. Nothing better, except if you find a home cooked Albanian spot. Yeah. All right. So let's keep it moving. So like we said, so you were roofing from like 14 to 16. You're doing that for the summers. Then when you were at 17, you worked at a sign shop worker at, so this was in Southwest Philly. You built wooden crates that they would put neon signs in. Is that right?
Yes, and it was at 65th and Upland, which is a heck of a ride from South Philly. I rode my 10-speed bike out there every day. Probably about a 40-minute ride, and that kept me in shape. So I worked there one summer.
Dude, so you bulked up one summer, and then you trimmed down the next.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, man, oh man. So you were fucking putting in the work to get this money, huh? Yeah, you weren't messing around. Nice. So this is kind of like, it's kind of funny. Like you see these, like you'll see them like the one thing that comes to mind for me is the Untouchables, where when Kevin Costner like breaks open the wooden crates and sees the umbrellas. Is that the kind of crates you were putting together, Frank?
Pretty much. They could be a couple feet in length, or they could be 10 feet long. They had to be sturdy enough not to break when you're transporting the neon, which was in a metal case. Yeah. But yeah, I like doing that. That wasn't as bad as being a roofer.
Yeah. Did you put it together with like actual tools, or was it an assembly line, or how'd it go?
No, just there was like a crate shop section of the shop, and had different size and lengths of wood and saws and pneumatic nail guns and.
Oh wow. Nice.
When cardboard was invented, there were riots. They were like, "This is BS! You're stealing our jobs."
You're like, "Do you think this cardboard could protect this neon? You're out of your fucking mind, pal." What were you gonna say, Frank?
No, I stayed there one year, and I was going to try to go back the next year, but I got hired by UPS.
Okay, all right. So let's move on.
Who's on the forefront of cardboard?
Yeah. You went to the wooden crate's number one enemy.
How are you going to protect the fragile objects?
Yeah. Those nice fragile things are going to get crushed in this cardboard, you stunad.
It's Italian, fragile.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a classic. Okay, so let's get into this. So former guest of the show, friend of the show, and me and your friend, Frank, Don Lyons, used to work at UPS. And he kind of did the same. He had brought up something that you actually did. So when Don Lyons was on the show, he had brought up how there's like guys that would unload the trucks, put the stuff on like an assembly line, and then it would go down the assembly line. It would go to people that would sort the packages, right? And he's telling us, he's like, look, these guys are so good. They were like behind the back throwing. They know where everything goes. Boom, 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 boom. It's all color coded and things like that. And they're just flying, putting all these things in the right place, and like just quick, right? And that's kind of what you were doing, because you worked. So you were UPS for like 4 years. You started by loading trucks, and then you were sorting packages. Is that right?
Yeah, I did some unloading of the trailers. I loaded trucks. I sorted, like you were just talking about. And the last few months that I was there, I actually had a driving route.
Oh, very nice. So you
were working your way up.
Yeah, well, like if you look at your 3 first jobs, you were roofing, you're working at the sign shop where you had to ride 40 minutes on your damn bike just to get there, and now you're lugging packages at UPS. Like, these are 3 manual labor jobs that you must have been just the most jacked Italian 18-year-old in South Philly at the time. You know?
I was jacked. I was always in shape.
Yeah. You're doing the karate. You're in shape. You're going to Palumbo's with the ladies. Things are going all right, you know? So, nice. So, okay. So, you're working at UPS. Right. So you started by loading trucks, but then can you kind of go over how the sorting packages things works? Because this is fascinating to me, because this is something that was developed out of necessity. Like UPS started just this, this delivery thing that blows up into this international brand that has to invent all these workflows just to keep up with the demand. And this is one of those things that they had to invent. So how does the sorting go? Can you kind of give us a layout of how it went?
Sure. Everything comes in on tractor trailers, and there's guys unloading those onto a giant conveyor belt. They go to a big metal ramp, and they slide down, gravity method, and there'll be an address on it, and that'll have a zip code on it.
Uh-huh.
And this giant carousel, we called it, with multiple, I forget how many exactly different colored bins there are, metal bins with, red, blue, green, black, white, what have you. Mm-hmm. They all correspond to certain areas of the city. Okay. So you have to be really good at knowing quickly what address corresponds to what color. And then the guys a little farther down that are loading these package cars, the brown trucks you see on the streets, they are pulling out of their color, red or white or whatever, for their trucks.
Oh, okay. So you're sorting. So you're just like any color goes into to where it's supposed to go. Then there's a guy that's specifically assigned to red. So every time he sees a red package, takes it, goes in the truck. And then there's another guy assigned to yellow. And every time he sees a yellow, takes it. Okay. So you're kind of supplying like all those guys. So it kind of, if by accident you do put it in the wrong slot, the guy's like, hey, yellow, I got your orange over here. Fucking boom, there you go. So they can kind of like, like they kind of can monitor it that way.
Except for Jeff, who's colorblind and is scared to tell anybody. He just sit there putting the wrong packages in the wrong bins 24/7. Like, God damn it, Jeff!
Yeah, and you're still waiting for your goddamn cannolis to get delivered, you motherfucker, you. Yeah. So nice. So what did you think, man? We had Don talk about UPS. This is another job. This is a tough job. What was your shift? Did you have to work graveyard or what?
I did work graveyard for most of the time I was there. And then when I started driving, that was kind of an 8 to 4 with a lot of overtime built in.
All right, fans, time for a break in the action to bring back one of our favorite segments. This is Give It a Shot with our good friend Bob Quinn. If you're sick of wasting time surfing on a streaming service, finding nothing, and then going to another streaming service and doing the same damn thing, then you need to start giving shit a shot. In this segment, our good friend Bob Quinn will give us some suggestions on what to start watching so we stop wasting time surfing and start enjoying those subscriptions that we've been stealing. Bob, give us a shot.
Coming at you with this cop drama, Mayor of Easttown out of HBO with episodes of about 1 hour. This show is a good show. Psychological thriller, even, some would say. What I'm saying is, give it a shot.
All right. That was Give It a Shot with our good friend Bob Quinn. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, I didn't do that long. I got the letter to go to the police academy.
So you've been at the police academy, been a plan for a long time, and you were just waiting on it, or did something like make you want to apply to become a police officer? How did that matriculate?
I had the idea of being a cop probably, during the Middle 80s. It sounds like the Middle Ages now. The Middle 80s, around my ninja period. I was also watching those not fantastic by today's analysis, Schwarzenegger and Stallone.
Oh, yeah, dude. Lethal Weapon, MacGyver, all of that, bro. Come
exactly.
on.
And my uncle retired, I guess, about 15 years ago now. He made it to the rank of lieutenant colonel, which is the second highest rank in the Jersey State Police. So my uncle's a great guy. I admired him. I still do.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that. But you have to take a test, and there's a process. And you guys are probably way too young to remember this, but in 1990, the city was bankrupt and under state supervision, and everybody was under a hiring freeze. So it held me up for a while, probably about almost 2 years, and I had to take certain parts of the process over again. So I wound up actually getting hired in November of 1991.
Right. So
the distance had been done. You're like, look, we've taken the distance as far as it can go.
Yeah.
The ninja field isn't hiring, and now it's time to protect and serve the city of brotherly love.
So let's get into this then. So this is the heavy shit that we wanted to talk about. So this has been your calling. This is 30 years almost. So in November, it'll be 30 years that you've been protecting and serving, not just Philadelphia, but the nation, because that's what police do. And it's a 24/7 job to protect and serve. So one, we would like to thank you for all the things you've done as a police officer. We support the police on this show very much. Big fans of the police here. So I do want to say, like you said, you took the test. Now, there's processes in taking the test, and you took the test initially, but because of the freeze, right, like you were saying, you had to retake a couple things. Can you kind of go over what are the things that make up the test and how to get in? And this was back in 91. I know it's probably a little different now, but what would you, it's not like you show up, you write your name down, say, hi, I'm Frank, send it in, and then they call you. Like what's going on in the testing process back then, at least?
It's an aptitude test. They actually give you a booklet in advance of taking the test. I guess it was a few weeks or so in advance of taking the test. So if you study the booklet, you read it a few times, you really should do well. And I did.
Yeah.
So they're not trying to get you. They're not like, oh, let's see.
Yeah.
No, it's not a gotcha kind of thing. And then there's a psych test. They ask you some questions that are kind of bizarre, but unless you're crazy, you should be able to answer them. Like, do you dream often about Satan? And do you want to kill people?
Yeah.
Things like that. And of course,
which everyone says yes to, right? That's
right. Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So, I remember. So one of the guys at the gym, he's a state. I won't say his name. He's a state trooper, a PA state trooper, and he had told me about that, the psyche eval. And they're asking you questions like, have you ever thought about sleeping with an animal? And like, you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff, at least on his. Maybe he said yes to that. I don't know. But, so either way, you're doing the psyche eval. Sorry, I interrupted you. So you do the psyche eval.
Problem.
And then what's after that?
I'm not sure if it's in exact order, but you have to take a urinalysis test.
Yeah.
They want to make sure you're not using narcotics.
Yep. You got to piss clean. Yep.
Sure. And there's a polygraph test, and there is a very important, there's the background book you have to fill out, and you can't lie in it. At least you can't get caught lying in it, because if you do, they tell you right then and there, it's grounds for you being thrown out of the process. Like, and they'll even tell you, like, have you ever smoked weed? And just tell us the truth. And it's not like it's not a killer as far as you being considered, but you can't lie about it. If your neighbors say, yeah, he's on the stuff smoking weed all day, and we find out that's the truth, you're done.
Yeah.
So, it was fair. You just had to be honest with them.
Yeah.
And I got held up for a while. It was a little bit of a hard slog, and I got on.
Nice.
And I just want to throw out, since we are the working perspective, that goes for like some jobs, they have these background checks. And if you have something, admit it. Because if you don't do it right away, like, you can still get hired. But if they find out you're lying, you're done. Like, any risk department's going to be like, this guy lied, it's over, we're not hiring him. Agreed. So, like, you can always make up for mistakes, but you just got to be honest about it.
Yeah, to an extent. Like, if you're honest about,
to an extent, yeah.
Yeah, like if you say I dealt drugs, hard drugs, you're done. I did a robbery, you're done. Things like that.
Well, and that's what we're trying to weed out anyway.
Yeah. But nice. All right. So like you said, also, and this is part of like the development of your character. Like, let's think about it. You're 14 and 16. You're working hard on roofs all day. Then you're 17. You're riding 40 minutes on your bike to go to work at the sign shop. Then you're 18. You're hauling packages and sorting packages. And then eventually you're so reliable that they give you a truck, right? And then eventually you take the test, and it's 2 years that you're fucking pulling your pud because the freeze on everything. So you're kind of like, God damn, you're just going through the frustration. But this is just, and like I brought up earlier when we talked about your fight, it's just your perseverance, man. You see something and it's nonstop till you get it. And that's to be commended. And that should also be told to the young kids listening to this. Like, look, it's not going to happen overnight. And there's going to be bumps in the road, and you got to get past it, and you got to work through it. You got to be patient, but you have to stay diligent and stay on the course. You know what I mean? Because you could have flaked off at any time in that process when they weren't hiring you. Say, buzz off. Oh, I'm not doing that again. Oh, you stop. You're freaking yanking my chain, all this stuff. But you didn't do it, and you stuck with it. And look at you now, 30 years later, and still doing great. So let's do it. Let's move on then. Right. So you moved on, and then you got accepted into the academy. Right.
Yes.
So this is November 91. You started at the police academy. So what was the first day of the police academy like?
It kind of looks like what you see in movies when those kids get off the bus and the DI's yelling at them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's kind of like a what's the Vietnam movie? Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
They weren't cursing at us or punching us in the stomach or anything even close to it, but they got my attention.
Yeah. So it wasn't Police Academy. It wasn't a voluptuous blonde that was berating him.
Oh, baby.
No, not at that point.
Oh, baby, man.
So
go ahead. Sorry, Frank.
That's all right. It lightened up. I mean, it stayed that way for a couple more days, and it was never an easy atmosphere, but it wasn't that intense.
Yeah.
You just had to follow the rules. The rules were never unfair, and I couldn't believe I was making, I forget what the pay was. It was in the 30,000 plus range at the time. So I'm a kid.
This is in 91.
Yeah, this is 91. Might have been 28,000, and when I graduated, it was in the mid 30s.
That's like 60,000 nowadays, babe. You know what I'm saying, right?
Oh yeah. And I just had to follow some rules and be on time, and most of it's classroom stuff.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that kind of developed the attitude of like the police now? Because I feel like, at least my experience with the police and law enforcement has been like, look, there's rules, follow the rules, no problem. Break the rules. Fucking, this is what happens. And it's kind of like, that's kind of like what the drill sergeant kind of set the first, or the drill instructor set the first day. It's like, look, follow the rules. Then we'll be fine. Start breaking the rules. This is when I'm cracking heads, right? And like, that's kind of how it should be. But you had brought up when we were talking, and you said there was some physical stuff, but a lot of it, you said, was like courses that you were taking. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was law courses, Pennsylvania Crimes Code, like social stuff, a little bit of history of the police department.
And were you being tested on all this stuff? Like,
oh yeah,
failed the test out of the academy kind of thing?
It wasn't like that abrupt. Like you would have a chance to take a makeup test, or they worked with you. The goal definitely was not to have like half the class wash out like the Navy SEALs or something like that. But as long as you did what you had to do and you made an effort, I think everybody in my class, I guess there were 30 or 40 people. I think they all got through.
Oh, nice. All right, good. And that's 30 to 40 good cops on the street, and that's great. And that makes the city a safer and better place, as far as, in my opinion.
Sure.
So you're doing your courses, you're learning about the law, then you would get some PT, and then when did they bring in like gun training? Is that towards the end or the beginning, or where does that come in?
The guns were almost towards the end. You went to the range for 2 weeks. That was all you did. Yeah. And I had only shot a gun, I think, once or twice before my dad took me to a range when I was about 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, people that really don't have any experience shooting a gun sometimes do better because you're learning from scratch, being taught by real pros.
No bad habits have formed.
Yep.
No, and I did really well.
Nice.
I was a good shot, and I still am.
Hey, there you go. That's something to be. I mean, I'll tell you what. It does, pretty good at that's not a bad thing to be. You know what I'm saying?
Do you remember what gun you learned with at the academy? Was there a specific gun everyone came up with?
It was a 38, a revolver.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, baby.
And I got rid of it pretty quickly. They were actually allowing you to purchase, if you wanted on your own, a Glock.
Okay.
9mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I went out and bought a Glock, but then I think a class or two after I graduated, there was no more option to have a revolver. Well, they weren't issuing revolvers. You could still keep your revolver.
If you had it, it was yours, but.
Yeah, but I got the Glock, and well, there's actually still a few revolvers on the street. There's a handful of around. They haven't ever taken them away from the older guys and girls that
wow,
learned on them in the 80s and prior.
Yeah. Man, that's pretty cool. And honestly, Frank's gonna have a real interesting twist on guns in the police department later down the line. That's gonna be really cool. So let's keep this moving though. So you get through the academy, you crush it. Where are you? So after you graduate, where do you go? Like, how is it? Do they just? It's kind of like from what I gathered, at least with you, is like they put you where they need you, right? Is that how it goes?
Yes, and I went to the 26th district, and that's basically Fishtown, Lower North Philly, parts of Kensington.
The River Wards.
And I had guys coming up to me and saying, Frank, did you have help? You have some connection or something? I'm like, why? That's a great place. And I'm thinking, like, I think the crime I heard is pretty bad there. And, and I found out what they meant. Like, if you're a young cop, you want to go out and get involved in stuff. You want to make robbery arrests and stolen cars and things like that. But you don't want to be necessarily in an environment where there's never something different to get involved in. Like a slower section like Fishtown, where there's nowhere to eat or just have a little bit of a change of pace. So the 26th district had everything. Now it's kind of gentrified. It's much more it was just starting when I got there, but it was really, really rough when I got there.
But I think that's it. Like, I don't think people realize, because like now, Fishtown, Northern Liberties, that area is like, the hip new place to be. And I lived there for a couple of years. I loved it. But like, I remember when I was a kid, like, that was considered like, hey, that's where you went to go get your drugs, was Kensington, Fishtown area. Like, it was a little sketchy.
But
it's a huge area of the city. So
but you were kind of on the side of that. Like you could patrol the river. You could patrol, like, there was some night, like, you had some nice, like, it's kind of like where it is in the Northeast now, where it's like one block is freaking nice as hell. The next block is shit. The next block is nice as hell. The next block is shit. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, was that kind of like where you were at, where it's like there was some spots, but there was some nice places to patrol and wasn't a bad place to be. You know what I mean? Like it was actually like a really good learning ground, would you say?
Yeah, it was exactly like that. Like almost all of the shootings, for example, happened like west of the L.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On the other side of the Ave, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, nice. So when you're there, do you remember your first day as a patrolman?
I do. I remember it pretty well.
Oh, baby. Dude, would you mind sharing?
I don't mind at all. I'm probably going to stay away from mentioning names, but of course. They're going to put you with somebody. I found that it was only going to be 2 days that they put me with a veteran, but they put me with an older guy, and he was he was a nice guy. He was kind of a disgruntled guy. I heard he had some problems, maybe been treated not entirely fairly at some point in his career. And I wanted to do some police work. And, I said, can we make a car stop? Somebody going through a red light or whatever the case might be. And he really didn't want to. Yeah. And at some point, a car ran a red light or did something illegal, and he yelled at the window at them, probably using some choice words. He says, "You happy, kid? That's your car stop."
Jesus. So, well, he
left them with no choice. It was blatant. He had to be like, "Oh, this is." You know what?
You little whippersnappers. Yeah. So, but he was kind of like on his way out, and he kind of had he kind of felt like he was unjustly treated some way. So he was just not motivated to do good police work. And you're fresh out of the academy, like, hey, I'm here I want to do this. I want to protect and serve and all that. And he kind of just wasn't with it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, he was fine. Yeah. There were guys like that, but they were also keeping you out of trouble. And in between the disgruntled stuff, they were giving you some good advice.
Because I guess it's one of those things, like, especially that time in Philly, right? Like, Philadelphia had a population decline from 50 until 2000. So, like, 90 is like, peak decline. Across the U.S., it was also peak violent crime, right? Violent crime had been rising from the 60s up until the mid-90s, so you're kind of like getting there. And so, like, the older guys kind of, like, maybe knew, like, this is worth pursuing, this isn't worth pursuing. Kind of like that's where you kind of get the touch on police work is. You're not going to go after everything. You have to know what to go after, kind of a situation.
No, you're exactly right. And when you work in a high crime area, not that the smaller stuff's not important. I mean, I don't know if you guys heard of broken windows theory. Yeah. I mean,
I haven't. What is the broken windows theory?
Basically, broken windows, just for one example of neighborhood blight. If there's a neighborhood where it's just acceptable that windows are broken or there's trash all over a lot and the street lights are out, it appears to the people that live there that nobody cares, and it appears to criminals that nobody cares, and maybe the cops and the government don't care, so we can do a robbery here, we can do a shooting, we can sell drugs. So you repair the broken windows and some of the underlying root causes of crime. Giuliani's famous for it in New York.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry to interrupt. So you were...
No, it's fine.
So, okay, so the broken window theory, what comes after? So go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, so we used a lot of discretion when I was a cop. Like where I worked, it was almost cultural among some of the younger people not to have a driver's license, not to have insurance, not to have registration. Just cars were driving around. Some of them were falling apart. And if you got in an accident and you were the type of person that had insurance and had your credentials together, there was almost nothing. I had to tell you, ma'am, sir, like, I guess you could sue the guy if I can get the right name off him. But, and that changed later. You get what we call live stop. Now you have to have your stuff together in Philly for like the last 20 years or so. But if somebody made, an honest mistake driving and they were polite and they got the message, we kind of had a code. They weren't getting a ticket, and you weren't giving them a hard time, berating them. So nobody even takes the time to have their car registered, and they're arrogant and they just don't get the point you're trying to make about, blowing the red light. Then you're going to give them a ticket. But we had like a code. It didn't matter what color you were, what gender, what ethnicity, like. Everybody I worked with, I never saw anybody go out to give anybody for any improper reason a hard time. We were kind of just live and let live, and we picked our battles. Like you're not getting away with a robbery, a shooting, a stolen car, but
you're on your way to work and something happens. And
a guy having a beer on his porch or something. And technically, it's a citation, but come on, there's bigger problems going on. That's what those older guys taught me.
That's great. So you really did have a great veteran presence in the first, and it was the 26th district. Is that right?
It was the 26th district.
So you really did have a great veteran presence. And I remember when we were talking, you had said the veterans told you, like, look, before you go to the sergeant, come to us first, right? Like, talk to your veterans, talk to your fellow patrolmen. Maybe they can help you. If you need to go to the sergeant, that's one thing they'll tell you to. But a lot of times they wanted to help you get through the stuff and teach you and show you and all that stuff. And honestly, that's what, so Mike Vrabel, right? He's quoted in saying when he was on the New England Patriots, who arguably are the greatest dynasty in the history of all sports, right?
You shut your whore mouth.
But he's on the New England Patriots, and he had said, he's like, what the best teams are the teams where the veterans are grooming the young guys to take their job, right? Those are the best teams. And this is that scenario where these veteran cops, they're like, look, you're coming up. We're going to be working with you. We're going to need you to have our back. We're going to have your back. This is how shit is run here. This is how we do it. We're going to show you this is the right way. This is the wrong way. This is what to look for. And honestly, that's honestly an education you can't get anywhere else. On the job training like that, baptism under fire, that's the best way to learn. And honestly, I bet that has a lot to do with the longevity of your career. Would you agree with that?
I do agree.
Very good. Very good. So nice. All right. So let's keep it moving. You're in the 26th. You're there for a little bit. And then, what I did want to ask this, right? So what is like a day like? So you go there, right? So we had talked about this where you can't look like a slob going into the precinct. So let's say you have your shift starts at 8 a.m. We'll say, then this is just, for instance, this is just an example. Your shift starts at 8 a.m. You have to be at the precinct before 8 a.m. So you got to be there 7:45, right? At least. Then you have to go to the locker room. You have to get dressed in your police attire and everything like that and have all your stuff taken care of and looking sharp. Then roll call is at 8 a.m. You have to go to roll call. That's where the sergeant is going to be like, all right, you and you, you're 27. You and you're 35. You and you're blah, blah, blah. And they're assigning you a car that'll patrol a certain area of your district. Is that right?
That's almost exactly right.
Nice. Okay.
You got it.
So then back then, right, when you first started, and even maybe a little before, you had talked about a couple things. You had talked about hot sheets, and you had talked about pulling someone over before technology. So what are the hot sheets?
A hot sheet is a list of license plates that have been reported stolen recently.
Oh.
So you can get the hot sheet every day. It'll be on. They'll print plenty of them. Everybody should take one. And they also have wanted posters up on the bulletin boards.
If there is one crime Philadelphians are known for, it is stealing cars, and they are good at it.
Yeah, carjacking's a thing, and it's a freaking pastime around here. That and stealing the airbag out of a Honda Civic. I think we invented that here.
Anything from a Honda Civic
converter.
The catalytic converters are the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank, I have a buddy that works for Park and Recs, and he said one time he saw them. You know, like you always think how do they get the car on the milk crates? And he said he just saw them. They just start rocking the car, and they get off the lug nuts, and then they shift it up real quick. And it's like 2 minutes. And he's like, I never saw anything like it. Like they got those 4 wheels in a matter of 2 minutes before anybody could have came and seen them.
I've heard something like that. I've never seen it happen, but I've heard it.
That's unreal. That is unreal, man. I mean, you know. When you practice something enough, you get pretty good at it. Okay. So the hot sheets is just a list of like wanted people and stolen cars and things like that. And you said back in the day, you would kind of write it out and hang it up in your car or put it in your visor, right? Your sun visor at the, whatever the hell that's called. You would put it in there, and have the list. And so if something's going down, maybe we'll check this out. Maybe we'll check this out, things like that. Now it's kind of all, you have like a center console that has all that stuff. But prior to having the center console, what was like doing a ticket like? Do you remember?
It's still pretty much done the same way, although they're gradually going online where you could write them on your mobile data computer now.
Yeah. But
a ticket up until like really recently and still to some extent now is exactly the same as it was, when I came on. It's just a really simple 1-page document. You just put the basic info on there, and you keep a copy, and the guy or girl gets his copy.
Yeah, and it's tougher to run like the information in the center console, like when there wasn't one. You kind of just took their info and write it down, kind of thing.
Well, it all went through the dispatcher. Like if you were going
to,
check to see if somebody was wanted, you just gave the information to the dispatcher, and when you're telling the dispatcher the person's name, you don't want to be in earshot because if it comes back so-and-so is wanted for whatever.
You don't want the onion field creeping up.
Wow.
Right. You don't necessarily want to have everybody stop handcuffed in advance and make it that dramatic. So
is that, Frank, is that still like, I have some friends that are cops, and I always thought that like the most dangerous thing was the traffic stop because you're not sure who you're dealing with or what's going on. And that was always the big thought, like, like when you're stopping someone, you just never know what's going to happen. It's not a secure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think the stats always bear that out when they take a look at it, that the traffic stops are the most dangerous action.
Yeah, I could see that. Dude, especially if you're fucking got a hot car or something, you've already served some time and you want to go back and you got a gun on you and the cop doesn't know. That is fucking dangerous, man.
Yeah, they kill them in a surprise.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to almost like the roofing thing where it's kind of like you've been doing this routine thing and you kind of get comfortable with it when it can be a dangerous situation. Whereas if you're called on a domestic disturbance, you're kind of like already like, okay, these people are hyped up. Whereas if you think you're pulling someone over for a routine ticket, you don't think they're going to take it a big deal. But if they're wanted for something, they're taking it as a big deal.
Dude,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's life on your toes, man. My God. So, okay, so let's keep it moving then. So, I had this question. So as far as a dispatcher, right, is the dispatcher the same person every time, or do you get like assigned to dispatch in the roll call?
I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but they're at police headquarters. We rarely see them.
Oh,
you get to know their voices.
Yeah.
And you become familiar with, like, I guess, a limited number of them.
Yeah.
And they get familiar with the area that they're regularly assigned to.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. All right. Nice. Okay. So let's keep it moving, right? So you're in the 26, things are going good. then you learned right away not to not get out of the car without having them turn on. Like if you're pulling someone over, I remember you said this, the number one thing, don't get out of the car until they turn the car off, right? Yes. Number one thing, right? So you got that. And then is this before, so you're in the 26th. Did you get bumped up to detective at this point or no?
I was a patrol officer for almost 4 years. I took a test. I did really well. It's an aptitude test. I got promoted to detective, and I went to generally the same area, East Detective Division, that covers all the districts in that part of the city.
Okay.
I did that for about 10 months.
Oh, nice. All right. So you're doing like the detective stuff for a little bit. How did you like detective work?
I did not like it in comparison to every other job I have. I think it's probably a good job if that's what you want to do. Yeah. It was just an overwhelming amount of paperwork for me, and I'm good at paperwork, but if I could avoid it on a daily basis to the extent detectives have to get involved with it, I will.
Yeah. Frank, you come off as a people person. You wanted to walk that beat and know your constituents, right? You wanted to.
Yes.
So I would agree, and honestly. And we brought this up when we were talking. Frank had bounced around, I think, to 5 schools before he went to 4 or 5 schools before he went to high school. So he was the new kid at school for a bunch of years. So I think that helped him in learning, like, all right, you meet new people, you be polite. Like, because when you started coming to the gym, right away, you're hitting it off with everybody, and you're just a pleasant guy talking, and, you're not disrespectful, and you're polite and nice to everybody. You know what I mean? And I think that that's understated nowadays, where people are so socially awkward and things like that, where it's as long as you're polite and nice and, listen and can communicate well, it's not difficult to be like, you can get away with being a people person, even if you're a little socially awkward. But for you, Frank, and this is something I did want to bring up. So you leave being a detective and you're bumped up to sergeant, right?
Yes.
And when you're bumped up to sergeant, you specifically asked to be moved to the 25th district, aka the Badlands, right?
And this is Frank. Is this Temple area?
North, right?
North.
Temple is Temple borders it. Like the 25th goes over to Broad Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically over to
where the 23rd Diamond area is, right?
That is actually the 22nd. Once you get west of Broad Street, it's no longer the 25th.
Okay, I think I got the 25th and the 22nd mixed up.
Okay,
just as bad.
So you're in the 25th, aka the Badlands, right? It's a notorious area in the world as far as danger and crime and corruption and things like that. But you asked specifically as a sergeant to be sent there, right? And was this your first kind of leadership role when you went to detective, but then you went to sergeant? Sergeant, I'm assuming, is somewhat of a leadership role. And was this the first time in a leadership role and then asking to go to the most dangerous district in the city?
Yeah, it was. I had never been a supervisor in any other jobs I ever worked at. So it was.
Man, so I'll tell you what, that's a fucking leader so I will say this, and I brought it up in the story when talking about you, about the fight that, I cornered for you, the cop fight. And I'll say this, there is a lot you can tell about a guy by how their subordinates behave with you, right? So, like I said, the guys wouldn't leave you alone. You are, from what I've viewed at least, you're a player's coach. You're a Buddy Ryan, Rex Ryan kind of guy where your guys will fucking fall on their sword for you whenever, because they know you got their back. You have their best interests at heart. You won't screw them. You're honest with them. You give them the tough love, but also you do the right thing by them. And I could see that when dealing with your crew and your subordinates and things like that. As a leader, that's a lot to be said. Because I'll tell you this, and I bet there's a bunch of people listening that had their supervisor been about to be in a boxing match I bet they would pay to see their supervisor get hit instead of support them and want them to win and want them to rise to challenge and do good. You know what I mean? Like there's
Frank's he's weak on the left. Go for the left.
Yeah. Had it been a couple of bosses, I know some people know that they would have been doping up your water. You know what I mean? Like they would have had you all boozed, like all done up so you couldn't see out of your left eye when you're out there, just so you get beat up. But that's not what happened. Everyone was very supportive of you. They're really rallying in their corner. You had a great fan base, and like your subordinates were very supportive and really like after you and following you. And you could tell like you're very liked by your men and women that you were a sergeant over. So I think that comes from like I feel like part of leadership is that one, you have to work the hardest, right? Like you can't ask people to do something that you aren't willing to do yourself. So you signing up to go to the 25th district, to be in the shit with the people, with the patrolmen and things like that, that says a lot about your character and your leadership skills. So when you get to the 25th district, you're a brand new sergeant. This is the first time in a supervisor position. You've been a cop for like 5 years at this point, maybe. What is a day in the life like? Would you remember your first day as a sergeant in the 25th or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. It was, I'm drawing a blank on the month. I think it was January.
Jesus Christ. Who remembers that
cold.
shit?
It was really cold out. There was an ice storm and there's cars crashing into everything.
This was like 95 or 94.
Yeah, around 95, early 96.
I remember that.
I remember because we had that giant ice storm in between those two giant blizzards. There was Blizzard 93, Blizzard 96, and in between was that giant ice storm.
Oh, I remember that too. Dude, it iced over everything. We were all covered.
So nobody was getting shot that night necessarily, but I was managing all kinds of accidents.
Bad weather is great for crime.
Problems all over the district.
Well, okay. So real quick though, you're saying no one's getting shot during a snowstorm, but have you seen disputes over parking spaces?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've almost killed a motherfucker myself that he moved my fucking chair, and I'll tell you what. No, that's a rule that should.
We're living in a post-chair world, Matt.
No, the chair still lives. In my neighborhood, the chairs thrive. All right,
it's leaving.
No, if you move my chair, just know your teeth are getting knocked out.
And that's a citywide phenomenon. That's not just relegated to the traditionally rougher districts. That could happen anywhere where parking spots are scarce.
Oh yeah, especially during a blizzard, babe. And if you dude, it ain't easy shoveling out your spot. Tell you that right now. You know what I mean? You shovel out your spot and some fucking.
My favorite is in South Philly where they put up the no parking signs because something's happening on the areas they're not allowed to park on. I'm like, only in South Philly will they go down the middle of Broad and say, you can't park here this week. I'm like, you can't park there any week.
Yeah, you should be able to park in the middle of a major road. I don't know when this is, but I know too, Pete. And I mean, do you have a car now? Right? I thought you
got rid of my car like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I went car free when I was that? My wife does have a car, yes, yeah.
Okay, but in Manayunk and Roxborough, the parking there, especially during a snowstorm, holy shit. That's some rough stuff. Because you're on the hill. I just never.
Oh yeah, the hills, but like the amount of parking spaces, I don't think it doesn't beat South Philly or the River Wards. There's no parking there.
You're right. It's so tight there. The roads are so tight. So, okay. So, sorry. We kind of went off on a bird walk in there talking about bastards who remove someone's chair after they shoveled their spot. Those people, they're going to be in hell and they're going to burn in hell, and they should burn in hell because they're bastards. So, you know what? That's something that Captain Jerkbeard, a.k.a. Asshole, a.k.a. Tom Lavelle, that's something he would do. He would move your chair out of a spot you shoveled out. That's the kind of bastard he is. He's the kind of bastard that buys the right to someone's show out from underneath him. So, either way. You're in the 25th district. You're a sergeant. What's a day in the life like for Sergeant Frankie Palumbo of the 25th, the fighting 25th district?
It's kind of like what you described, but on the opposite. I'm giving out the assignments now instead of getting the assignments.
Yeah.
Making the assignment sheet, usually a day in advance, making sure the guys and girls know there's somebody out there that's a shooter, passing out those hot sheets, and then I'm a street guy, so I try to spend most of my day out there on the street with the cops.
No shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's something I did want to ask, because you don't have to like necessarily. You can stay back and do paperwork and things like that and kind of find a reason not to go on the street. But you, and I know your character, you're out in the street and you're in the shit with your guys, because like we said, you're not going to ask them to do something you wouldn't do yourself. And you wanted to know that their sergeant was there to have their back and things like that. That's something, I'll tell you what, you don't see that in all leadership roles. And that's something that you should be very proud of, that you were willing to do that and sacrifice for your men and women underneath you. And you should be very proud of that.
Like, yeah, how did that work? Like, if you were going out, like, how would you spend your day on the streets as the sergeant?
You're supposed to sign everybody's patrol log. Every cop keeps a patrol log. So you want to go check the log out and make sure they're doing some police work, like responding to radio calls, 911 calls in their sector. It's impossible to go. We don't have quotas. But it's impossible to go through a day without seeing something. Somebody's illegally parked. Somebody ran a red light. And like I said, you don't have to hammer people, but you should at least be engaging in people to try to keep crime down. Occasionally, you're going to expect that somebody's going to make an arrest for something, stolen car, drugs, whatever the case might be. So if a cop's doing nothing, it's not a good idea. So you're basically checking that they're doing their job all day.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're not hovering, and you're not like over managing. You're just kind of there just to make sure things are right. Like, okay, there was a shooter, a homicide in this part of the district last week. Let's just roll by there, make sure everything's smooth with these guys. All right, this person had some trouble with this last week. Let's roll by there, make sure everything's smooth with that person. You heard that this was happening in this area. Let's just make sure everything's smooth over there.
Or damn, I stopped by Max's cheesesteaks at 1, at 2, and at 3, and you were there all 3 times.
Yeah. You're like, look, it was 3 cheesesteak Thursdays. You know how I'm doing it, right? Could you imagine? Oh, man.
Or did you really need to check the strip bar 4 times because it got robbed last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Back when the trestle in was still going, no, I'm telling you, the trestle's hopping, boss. We need to be out there all the time.
Yeah. A lot of activity at the trestle. Yeah. Shaky butts. A lot of stuff going down. Yeah. But nice. All right, great. So, okay. So you're doing a sergeant. Like we said, you're a player's coach and you're doing your thing. So how long were you in the 25th?
The entire time I was a sergeant, about 6.5 years.
6.5 years as a sergeant in the toughest district in the city. And
so
you
Frank,
asked to go there.
Were you there when they started Safe Streets, or did you move when Safe Streets had started?
I was right there during Safe Streets. I'm glad you brought it up.
All right, fans, time for a break in the action. We're bringing a new segment. This is What's Going Down in Gamertown with our good friend Dominic McGinley, a.k.a. the Dommy Llama. Dom, what's going down in Gamertown?
All right, so Matt, out right now is the 16th installment of the popular franchise from the early 2000s, Ratchet and Clank. They are back in this game called Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This game is a third-person shooter platform developed by Insomniac Games exclusively for the PlayStation 5. So if you you know somebody that has a PlayStation 5, I recommend grabbing it. This game has wonderful graphics, has a great balance between action and comedy, in gameplay and story. Something I would highly recommend for both kids and adults.
Fantastic. And that was another segment of What's Going Down in Gamertown with our good friend Dominic McGinley, a.k.a. the Dommy Llama. Now, back to the show. So, for those who don't know, Frank, can you kind of give a short synopsis of what was Operation Safe Streets?
It was under Mayor John Street, and there was a lot of shootings and homicides and drug sales, just terrible conditions for people to live in some of the more challenging areas of the city. So they basically had mandatory overtime for cops and supervisors, and it lasted several months. So the most notorious corners had cops, 24/7, 365. And there's, if you want to read up on it after we get done with this, it's probably wasn't in retrospect the best strategy, because you can't really dedicate that amount of resources long term. And when you start pulling back, what happens is those corners are owned, so to speak, by drug bosses.
Yeah.
And when you have a cop completely suppressing drug sales in a particular area, they're not dumb people. They're going to go somewhere else.
Yep.
So then there's going to be feuds for those areas that they try to take over. And in the wake of Safe Streets, I think a lot of people think that's why you saw a surge in violence again. It temporarily reduced crime. And then there was a surge again until the until the teens.
It's an interesting thing. There's almost like a homeostasis that goes on. Like, you know, if the criminals know this is my area and this is my area, there's not as much beef. But when all of a sudden they're put out of where their normal hunting grounds, and you know, people start coming together, fighting over where they can sell. And then when the cops abandon the areas, and again they all come back, and people are like, you know, whose corner is this and whose corner is that? It can get really tribal, I guess is what you say.
Cockroaches when you turn the light on. Would you say too, Frank? It sounds to me, and I might be wrong, you're saying you had different guys from different districts during the mandatory overtime underneath you, right? When you were supervising different people from different districts in the Safe Streets thing. Is it dangerous to have, say, if you have a guy that's normally in the 22nd and he knows his corners and he knows his route and he knows his area, and he comes over to the 25th, is it dangerous for him to be in a district where he doesn't know the corners so well, he doesn't know the streets as good? Like, could that be like potentially like fatal in those scenarios? Like, is that a dangerous thing? Like, it seems to me like, you know, you're taking a guy to a whole new turf, maybe, you know, that he's not used to, and he's tired. It's overtime. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
It can be. That's why you got to put them in a situation where they're going to be okay. Like, one of the most important things is knowing where you are. Some of those older cops I talked about, you know, from day one said, Frank, where are you? I don't know. Now you got to know. You're at 2nd and Diamond. Simple as you have to know. Look up at that street sign. So when these outside cops were coming in, if they had been on patrol of the whole district or a big portion of the district, it would have been a lot more dangerous. But they're literally on a corner. Yeah. So you got to know where they're at. And they weren't by themselves. So there's backup there. So it can be really dangerous. But I think we did what we had to mitigate it.
Yeah. So like you weren't bouncing around like from every different corner in the district. It's like, look, when you're coming here, this is your spot.
Matt, they actually they were. This was the corner you sat on, and you were just there all day with your. At least from what I remember from the stories I had heard, you got planted on a corner. You were given your radio, and they would drive by. You know, when they thought your radio was going to run out to give you a new one or the battery. And
no shit,
that's it,
man. That's crazy too. What you're saying is crazy. Where it's like, okay, so you stopped it on this corner, but they just went to another corner and did it there. Like, I mean, you know, I don't know. That's tough stuff. Okay, so let's keep it moving because, like, policy isn't what we talk about here. We talk about the work that you're doing. Yeah. So, all right, so you're in the Badlands. You go through Safe Streets. Everything's good. Then you leave the Badlands after 6.5 years, and you get promoted to lieutenant, and then you go to West Philly. So how long I think you were in West Philly for 5 years as a lieutenant. Is that right, Frank?
Yeah, about 5.5 years. I was in the 19th district, and that was a rough place too. Not quite as rough as the 25th. It had its nice sections and its rougher sections.
Yeah. But you're in like the Overbrook area, right? Is that
Overbrook down to the dividing line is Market Street. Again, the L, you know.
Oh, wow.
I heard there were a lot of basketball fights you had to stop over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, guys will fight on basketball courts. Sometimes there's shootings on basketball courts.
There was one man in particular that had to go to Bel Air afterwards because he got into a fight. And his
I think I remember that. Now you're going back to the 80s again.
Fucking bitch, you motherfucker.
Oh, this was before your time there.
I totally missed that the first time you said it.
He got in one little fight.
You motherfucker. All right. So, his mom got, all right. Fuck you, Pete. God damn it. But all right. So, okay. So you're in West Philadelphia, and you're there for 5 years as lieutenant. Would you say, like, I know it's got to be different to an extent, the police work, because the neighborhoods are different. But was the police work itself like kind of it's the same formula, just different ingredients kind of thing? Is that what you were working with when you were in the West in 19?
Yeah, basically, all our policy and even the police culture is really similar.
Yeah. And it's it's kind of like you had to learn the layout, you had to learn your troops, you kind of had to get things going, and you're able to like we said before, you bounced around to a couple of schools as a kid, you're bouncing around to another district, you're able to assimilate yourself, you're able to, get your leadership position, get your guys in the line, and you're able to be successful in another tough area, the 25th is the Badlands is the worst, but West Philadelphia, it isn't freaking cake and ice cream. You know what I'm saying? Like there's definitely some stuff going on there. You're there for 5 years, right? And then after 5 years in West, you transfer to Center City, right? Now, this is I believe you made captain in Center City, right? This is around 2012. Is that right?
I spent from midway through 2010 to 2012 when I did get promoted in the 6th, which is part of Center City, as a lieutenant, and I had a great time there. So kind of a year and a half between the 19th and making captain in the 6th district, which is Chinatown, the Gayborhood, Market Street.
Yeah, really,
and I love all the fun stuff.
But you were in you wanted that challenge, right? Like from what we were saying, like you wanted to be in Center City, where this in the city, not the neighborhoods. The city.
I wanted something different. You don't get the shootings. We've had multiple homicides by stabbing there over the years. A lot of it's homeless on homeless. It's a whole culture out there. They're destitute people, not to knock them, but there's a lot of violence associated with it. Yeah. So really not the shootings, but the stabbings and the thefts. It's a different world compared to the 25th and the 19th.
So okay. And when you're there, you took up night command. Is that right?
That was as soon as I made captain. I go to in 2012. I go to night command, and night command. If it wasn't for the hours that you basically work an evening shift and then an overnight shift. I'm not like an overnight kind of guy, so the hours were kind of rough, but the job's great.
That's when the ninjas work at night. Yeah, they come out like.
Exactly. And it's a really good job. You're kind of the captain at large and you might have a buddy or two also working that night as a captain. Sometimes you're by yourself, but the district captains have a really hard job and they have to go to sleep at some point. So you're kind of filling in for them. Not getting into the minute details of crime in their areas to the extent they would be, but you're going to respond to shootings and homicides and major incidents. If there's an explosion, a fatal accident, things like that. So sometimes it could be completely dead. You might not have to do much at all. And sometimes you could be running the whole night. So I really liked it other than and I did it for about 5 months until I got a permanent command.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So let's get into that then. So you're night command and then 5 months and then you got a permanent command as a captain in Center City, right? Is that where you're at now?
I'm in the Center City area. I made a couple pit stops along the way. Briefly, there was a temporary vacancy in the 35th, which is far North Philly.
Like Little Moscow, North Philly, like that far?
Yeah, that's northeast.
Oh, okay.
Like Broad and Olney, that up.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, Central High, and so and then I was sent. I got my actual permanent command. Well, nothing's permanent, but I got assigned to the 2nd district, which is Lawncrest, Cotman Avenue. I was there about 2.5 years, and I liked it.
Yeah.
Then I got put in Center City, and I stayed there for almost 3.5 years. When I got sent there, I asked to be bike trained because most of their cops are bike cops, and I wanted to ride out there with them.
And you mean and when he says bike, he means bicycle, not motorcycle.
Yeah, Pacific Blue.
Yeah,
Yasmin Bleeth.
Oh yeah, baby. No, so this is very interesting. So think about this, and me and Frank have talked about this. And Frank, are you okay to talk about running the bike units for
sure,
the riots and things like that? So Frank, right? Think about this. How you said, was it like 250 bike cops under your command during these riots, Frank? Is that right?
It could be at some point. Like it'll be all hands on deck when you guys saw what was happening after Mr. Flo was killed.
Yep.
And then another gentleman in West Philly.
Yeah.
It's not just the bikes. It's like everybody. It's all hands on deck.
Yeah.
Because that's what the situation required. So I could have a handful of bikes working for me. I could have several hundred, depending upon the circumstances. And, sometime there'll be another captain helping out, and I'll be reporting to the next level after me's inspector. I'll have an inspector to report to about what's going on or what my instructions are. So I don't do it all the time, but whenever they need it, I actually enjoy doing it.
Yeah. But you see, like, to be fair, and this is the kind of thing that, and we don't get political on this show, but this is the kind of thing where, like, you're protecting the lives of the people in the city with what you're doing. Like, when the riots happened, every civilian battened down the hatches and kind of did their thing, right? If they weren't out rioting and doing that bullshit, they were like batting down the hatches, and like people's are with their families in their home. And you had to leave your family and you had to go command this bike unit, and it's a bicycle unit, not a motorcycle unit or a horse unit or a car unit. You're a bike unit, and you're out there and you had to command these guys. And you're like, look, everyone's stationed here, here, here. We're keeping eyes on this. Something happens. Let's take care of it. Do your thing, and like you did see some things, and you told me the story about almost getting nailed by a brick, and having your lights taken out. Like it's very dangerous what you're seeing and what you're dealing with. And it's the kind of stuff that regular people are scared to deal with. And you had to take away time from your family and things like that, off hours, to go deal with it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of something that, people, I hate being political. We're not political on this podcast, but that's something that everyone should be very thankful that you sacrificed that.
Well, I mean, it's a tough situation. You know what I mean? Like, things happen. People get out there. They they want to express their constitutional rights, and then you just have to be there to make sure, like, you exercise your rights, and then make sure people don't go too far and cause damage. So it's a tough line to toe. I guess is what you want to say. There's no easy or right answer for any of it. You just have to. That's why you want the guy that has 30 years on the force and like to walk the beat.
Well, I'll give you a quick one. As far as the commitment and leaving the family and all that, and I'm a history guy, so I know guys like that walked away after Pearl Harbor and didn't see their family for 4 years, right? I'm not even close to that. I'm in awe of those kind of guys. But during the riots in the fall, when Mr. Wallace had an altercation with the police and got killed, I got called about 1 a.m. I'd been asleep for a couple hours, got told to come in. They didn't, they needed a bike commander right away. So I started working on that, and I didn't get home till about 26 hours later. I slept for about 3.5 hours, got up, and then got home after that about 17 hours later. So, and that doesn't happen often, so I can't complain, but it was just something me and a couple other people had to do.
Yeah, still. It was a sacrifice that everyone else is sound asleep in their beds, brother. Tell you that. And
that was the same night, about 23 hours into that, I'm dodging asteroids.
So are you cool to tell that story, Frank? Or
that's fine.
Okay.
It's been in the news. People were expressing their opinions, and it got out of hand. I think we all could tell that was going on in the news, and some of the more extreme groups, they have tactics, and one of them is filling trash cans full of bricks or rocks, any kind of projectile they could, and they were hurling them at our cops on bikes, and the cops that weren't on bikes, in the intersections at between like 2 and 3:30 in the morning. And there's just rocks coming. They had a lot of them. It's like artillery coming in.
Yeah.
So we have guys and girls with shields and heavy equipment for that. The bikes, we have our helmets. We're actually, hopefully we're going to get some more protective equipment in the future. But you got to do what you got to do. We have to disperse them. You can't let that keep happening.
Yeah.
So I was doing my best dodging bricks and stuff like that and keeping my cops out of the way. Meanwhile, there's police car windows getting smashed all over. There's fires being lit, windows being smashed out.
Yeah.
And we're getting things under control. And one of my sergeants, I don't want to say saved my life, but he saved me from maybe taking a brick in the head. Says, "Cap, stop," because I'm about to turn a corner. And I got got what he was saying and jumped off my bike. It ran about 15 feet back, and, pretty big brick like cracks in half, like right where I jumped off my bike. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Dude, and think about this, right? Like those people throwing those bricks don't know that they're throwing them at a married man who's got 7 kids. Like, no. And they don't I don't think too. I think it's, gosh, it's such a touchy subject, and we don't get into that. But man, I'll tell you what, man, Frank, it's, I'm just happy that you're safe. I think everyone is. That's a,
thanks.
That's a hell of a sacrifice to make. And I think everyone should be thankful, regardless of their political opinions, of the sacrifices that were made by the people.
That's only my part-time thing now, because right now I'm called, the captain of court court evidence unit.
Oh, so this is cool. Yeah. All right. So like we were saying, Frank here right now is captain of court evidence. Is that right, Frank?
That's correct.
Okay. So what does that kind of entail? Kind of briefly, if you sum it up, what do we got there?
Well, property comes into the custody of police every day. It could be confiscated because the property was used in a crime, like a gun or a knife. It could be money that was lost. It could be money that was confiscated for drugs. It could be a car that's being investigated for a fatality. And I have actually a separate location. My main office is at City Hall, but my other location is over near the river in Southwest Philly, where we keep the cars.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and it's a neat place. It's a really good job. I have really great cops and supervisors working under me. So they make my job pretty easy. I'm just that extra set of eyes, and I sign off on things, try to keep the ship steered straight. But like I said, they make it really easy for me. We're not going to lose your property. We're not going to lose anything that has to be used in court. We destroy guns. Most of the guns that come in our custody are destroyed. We actually have a gun buyback program where community people get together and they'll give you like a gift certificate to go shopping or something if you turn in a gun. So that's a great program.
Oh, wow.
And, once those guns are turned in, or any other gun, once a judge says it could be destroyed because it's not needed in court anymore, we actually we have a process of melting them. So there's not any part of a gun left at all.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about this. So, and this is all for example, right? This is all an example. So say a crime is committed involving a firearm, right? You confiscate that firearm. That firearm is then held in holding, right? Because it could be used in a trial, or it's used as evidence against to prosecute the offender, kind of thing, right?
Exactly. I mean, the cops on the street that don't necessarily work for me usually come into first contact with it.
Yeah.
And it goes through a testing process. Then it comes to us. It's obviously secured, and then eventually we want to destroy it.
So how does that work then? So say the murder weapon comes in, the guy gets 50 to life, right? So he's shipped upstate. He's doing his time. He's still going. If he's still in state penitentiary, federal penitentiary, whatever, does that evidence stay in the evidence holding until he's dead? And then once he's dead, you can destroy the gun? Or how
you
does
hit
it
the
work?
nail on the head. It's almost like you read the policy. For murder's one of the only exceptions that gun is kept secure until that person's no longer alive.
No shit.
Not that it happens.
All the new
often.
DA evidence and all that kind of stuff they want to.
Innocence Project, and it could theoretically be needed again in court.
Yeah. And you don't want to need it and not have it. That's the fucking bottom line. So, man, that's great. The amount of kind of shit that you must have there between weapons, drugs, money, paraphernalia, anything. like that must fill a fucking warehouse, 5 of them for Christ's sake.
And he's size in that.
Have several locations. Yeah.
But like you have to categorize and place everything. It's almost like you have like a library of records with this evidence stuff. Like that's very interesting. It's
incredible. There's a computer system that keeps track of everything. We could look up what shelf it's on. It's almost like a supermarket.
I wonder if do you think like, so for the programmer or the engineer that created that computer system, like obviously you have to have IT guys work on your system, right? So do they have to take like a code of silence for this evidence stuff, right? Like they can't be chatting about fucking John Gotti's gun and fucking, you know what I mean, right? Like,
well, they shouldn't be. They wouldn't. IT guys wouldn't necessarily know about individual pieces of evidence. They would just work on the system for us to put the info into. And
they just made sure that your login password wasn't password. They're like something a little bit harder than that.
Yeah, sure. They made sure that you didn't use an ampersand sign in your Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
Man, all right, that's cool. Okay, so then, like you were saying, when this needs to be destroyed, and I think this is great because the less guns on the street, the better, in my opinion.
I agree.
Right? So, like you're saying, when someone's number comes up, say you had someone, in jail for murder, that person passes away, gets the chair, whatever the hell it is, they're done. Their weapon is no longer needed as evidence. So you'll have like, is it like a yearly thing, a daily thing, a weekly thing, a monthly thing? When does it come up? You're like, so you can pull that piece of evidence to be destroyed. Do you destroy it immediately that day? Or does it take like a week, a month? Or is it yearly? Like, how does it work?
Well, we don't have an exact timetable on it. But several times a year we try to destroy, and there's different categories of evidence.
Yeah.
Like guns, for example, we'd have to get court orders to destroy them in bulk.
We have to wait for Jimmy Buffett to come through town, and then you're like, all right, we can do it.
Yeah. And sometimes people get stuff back, like say your house got raided on a warrant for drugs and you got found guilty, you might get your money back. So sometimes if people are legally entitled to get their property back, we're going to give it back to them.
No shit.
So it's not our call. We just hold it until somebody else tells us it's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So do you have someone at the court system that like you're directly in contact with, or is this like the lawyer or whoever, the prosecutor or whoever, the judge who's in charge of this case, they're in charge of the weapons or in charge of any kind of evidence associated with this case as well, and they're the ones you hear from? Or is it like one person that this is the evidence guy at the courts that this is who you deal with?
There's not one person, but kind of combination of everything you just said. A judge signs off on things, a person or a lawyer can make a petition, and certain categories of stuff is just like lost and found or personal property for safekeeping. You always get that back. Things that are marked for investigation, if the detectives investigating it don't need it anymore, it might not even necessarily ever made it to court. They can sign off on it that the person can have it back.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
And so, Frank, I saw this on an episode of Doug on Nickelodeon back in the day, where Doug found some money on the street and wanted to keep it, but he said that if he turned in the police and they held on to it for like 2 weeks or whatever, and no one claimed that he could get it, and then he got the money. Is that a real thing, or is that just made up?
No, it's real. I don't have the exact rule on it right in front of me, but you can put in a claim for property.
So you can just like hand it, you're like, hey, I'm turning this and I found it, but if no one claims this by this date, then it's mine.
Yeah,
finders keepers is actually written rule of the law.
Yeah. And if you take it to Frank, he's like, look, I found $35,000 in a bag in the park, and let me know when it's good to come back.
If I was a drug dealer, this is what I would do. Once a month, I'd tell them like, hey, I found another bag. If no one claims it by the end of the month, it's mine.
Yeah.
Well, it happened on the Honeymooners. It happened on the Flintstones.
Yeah. I was watching Doug. Yeah. I would love if someone's like, look, I found 30,000. Here it is. 2 weeks later, they come back and the guy's like, you actually found 25,000. Isn't that right? And they're like, oh yeah, I only found 30. Yeah, no, that would never happen.
In the old days,
that would never happen.
Serpico days.
That kind of shit. Like, okay, so That's actually funny you mentioned it. So I was listening to the show. Have you guys ever heard of John A-Light or Johnny A-Light? He was he was a hitman for John Gotti. He was like one of John Gotti's right-hand man. He was in the mob. He was like a notorious like killer, gangster, wise guy. He's also Albanian, just an FYI. But he was on a podcast I like to listen to, Chrissy Chaos with Chris Stefano. Check it out, big fan, Chrissy D. So either way, he was on that show and he was talking about, and he had talked in an interview about how for the mafia to murder someone nowadays, it would be like, it's so impossible because of how the cops have everything, where it's like cameras are everywhere, fingerprints are everywhere, DNA is everywhere.
They want you to think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I'm saying like you guys, like the police kind of have everything. Like it's got to be so tough. You know, I mean, I know murder happens all the time and homicide and things like that, and it fucking happens, and you know, obviously people can get away with it and things like that.
Yeah, man, I think John Mulaney actually said it best in one of his bits where he's like, you know, like what did they do before DNA? You're like, oh, someone died. Let's draw a line around them with chalk. Oh, there's blood over there. Get rid of that. That's disgusting. Like what, what were people doing back in the day?
Yeah. What Sherlock Holmes was really the height of like, you know, detective work when he was like, oh, what's this over here? A spyglass? Oh, very good. No, yeah. I'm with you, but I feel like now the way that, I mean, with security footage and cameras being everywhere, I mean, in like Google, you know, Jesus Christ, and your phones being able to track GPS.
Well, like, not to mention all the people putting it on Instagram or Facebook as well as they're doing it.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ, Frank. I mean, so you kind of worked through that, Frank, where at the beginning of your career, it's the early 90s. There's no social media, internet or whatever. And then eventually you were still, you know, you're a sergeant lieutenant working the streets during the birth of the social media era. Did you start to see like fucking stunads taking pictures, posting on Facebook saying like, I just robbed this liquor store or something like that? Like, did you ever come across that?
They kind of do it now. Like there's some really, I mean, we have people that monitor that. I mean, they've taken it to a whole new level, but going back about 8 or 9 years ago when that stuff was starting to develop, I had cops that were really, really advanced with the social media, and a girl that worked for me in the second was fantastic at it. We had a gun missing in a school one time. Nobody would give up the gun. And I asked her if she could go on and do her thing and find the gun. She's like, yeah, the gun's in the trash can, you know, because they're talking about it in real time while we had the school lockdown.
Jesus Christ.
Or other times, dudes will be like, you know, holding their gun up and doing their thing that you see on social media,
bullshit
about the shooting, or at least bragging about the back and forth rivalry between them and the guy that just got shot. So it points you in the right direction. I mean, they just make it too easy. It's like leaving fingerprints, you know, and dropping the gun at the scene. But just that was media.
The big one just a few months ago. There was a guy, like, you know, the bikes come out there and whenever, and they surrounded a guy in a car, and the one guy's destroying his car, and his friend's videotaping it. And you're like, yeah, man, you're on camera now. We know who you are. Like, this is not.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Fucking,
I guess.
Idiots. No, I mean, but if they're dumb, I mean, God, Jesus, those fucking morons deserve what they get. You know what I'm saying? So, all right. So let's keep it going. I want to talk about a couple things, and then I'll let you go, Frank. But I mean, I hate to do this, but because this has been nothing but fascinating. So we talked about your taking tests for inspector and staff inspector. So what does this entail? So is this kind of like you talked about taking the detective test and you passed, and like obviously lieutenants you passed, and captain and everything like that. Is this just kind of like another step up the ladder for you? Like what would change in your duties if you were to be an inspector or staff inspector? Like it's just go ahead.
No, it's fine. Right now I'm on a list for staff inspector. The lists always run 2 years. There's no guarantee I'll get it. There's no guarantee I won't. You have to take basically go in front of boards that come in from out of town. So there's, you know, no potential for any tampering.
Yeah.
And they ask you a bunch of questions, and you have 15 minutes to answer like 3 different questions. And I did really well this time, at least on the staff inspector portion of it. So I'm pretty high on that list. I think I got it, you know, maybe a good shot of making it. And if not, I could take it again in about a year and a half.
But,
That's the job I want. Inspector's a really, really hard job because now you're in charge of an area of the city. Like you have 3 or 4 captains working for you, and they do a great job on their own in most cases, but you're managing that whole ship. Yeah. Staff inspector is more of like almost a quality control person. And that stuff's important too, but it's not as rough on a daily basis as
you want the action. You want to be, because like inspector, you're kind of monitoring the streets. Right? Like,
I'm not real high on that list, the inspector list now, and I'd like to have it, but I'm good with staff too.
Yeah.
Like I'm approaching 30 years.
Yeah. 30 years of hard police work too. 30 years of hard police work.
And whenever, break glass in case of emergency, I saddle up on the bikes and put that together.
Yeah.
So I'll be happy if I make staff, and if not, I'll take the test in a year and a half again. I'll get it.
Hey man, I have faith in you.
There's no written component, which makes it a little harder for me. Once captain's the last rank with a written component, and not harder than anybody else. But if you tell me there's like 5 books and all our policies that I have 2 years to study for, I'm going to know it cover to cover.
Yeah,
it's almost too easy. But after captain, it's just these panels that come in, and I mean they try to be fair, but there's human opinion that comes into play. And I've walked out of test thinking I did great, and I didn't do really well, and the last one I walked out, I'm like, I kind of screwed up, and I did better than I've done in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Yeah. I think, dude, hey, as much as I know you, you're a relentless freaking mongoose and fucking cheetah when it comes to this stuff. So
I'll get it.
Hey, man, I'll tell you this, and this is something I prided myself on when I was fighting. My trainer, Harry Joe Yorgi, he would say, no one worked like me. He's like, you work more than anybody. You're the hardest worker. And I will say this, you are right up there, Frank. I've seen a lot of guys work and all that stuff in the gym and everything like that, but you fucking work, brother. And you should be very proud of that. That's something that you can hang your hat on, and that you should. So let's keep it moving. I want to finish up with this. So you had told me this. So right now, you're the historian on the board of the Custodes Pacis. This is the Philadelphia Fraternal Organization of Cops and Firefighters of Italian-American heritage. And then you're also the historian for the state of PA, Sons and Daughters of Italy. So are these related? Are they separate? Like, what kind of does this entail? Because this is great, because I think that this should be for a lot of people, like, Italian-American heritage, Irish-American heritage, Polish, whatever, like Jewish, Spanish, whatever it is. I think that this is great that you have this. So what is it? What are you doing here? What does this entail? And what do you got going on?
All right. I've been a member of Custodes Pacis and also the State Lodge, I guess about eight years or so now.
Custodes Pacis.
That's Custodes Pacis. A lot of people can't say it. Loosely translated, it's Guardians of the Peace in Latin. Our logo is actually on our patches, a Roman centurion.
Oh, very cool. All right.
Yeah,
Custodes Pacis, is that how it says?
Pacis or Pacis, Guardians of the Peace. Cool. And a good buddy of mine, Inspector Bologna, is the president of our club. I was never into things like that. Like I'm kind of not like a club and an association guy, but I like history and I like people. Yeah. So they asked me to join, and about a year or so into it, when we had elections, they wanted me to be the historian, because I'm a history nerd. If I'm not watching history stuff on Netflix, I'm watching the Titans That Build America on the History Channel. Yeah. I just love it.
I'm a big fan too.
Yeah, when I joined, I thought, not to criticize anybody, but I thought the Italian-American part of it was drifting away a little bit. And, we were eating pizza, beer, and wings and having an event now and then. So I got them as part of my duties to let me give a brief presentation at our monthly meeting.
All right.
Yeah. So I'll come up with a different topic. And I actually also administer our Facebook page, Custodes Pacis 2085. And I administer the state of Pennsylvania. The state of Pennsylvania is just our parent organization. There's all kinds of Sons and Daughters of Italy clubs throughout the state. Yeah. So most of them want to be under the umbrella of the State Lodge.
Yeah.
So I'm the historian for both boards. They kind of segue into each other.
Dude.
It's a lot of fun.
Dude, that's great, man.
So, Frank, as a historian and a South Philly guy, can you are you familiar with the mosh or the neck?
The mosh? No, I'm not.
Yeah, the neck. All right, I give it. So my grandmom was originally from South Philly, where now the Walt Whitman Bridge goes over. But that area of South Philly was like an area that hadn't been developed forever until the 50s. It was called the Mosh or the Neck or whatever. And it was really just like a bunch of houses along a canal that had no electricity.
Wow.
And yeah, basically, like it wasn't until there's a whole conspiracy that the people were run out because they let a dam go and it flooded it out. Because for a long time, like it was a illegal slum, so nobody was paying taxes. There was no electricity going there. But people they would have nice cars and have jobs. They just wanted to live in this area of the city. And then eventually, the dam broke or a dike broke and it kind of flooded out. And they were like, oh, they finally got rid of us. Because for a while there, everyone, like every couple of years, it would get really bad. And then they would come down with cops and the people would chase them out with pitchforks. And then it was like in the mid-1950s where it finally like kind of went down. But I was doing some family research and I kind of found out about it because I didn't realize any of this stuff. It's pretty nice.
I'm going to check it out. I've heard of things like that. I haven't heard it called that. But for instance, in Southwest Philly and where the Navy Yard is now, I've always heard there were like kind of just little towns,
yep.
Not necessarily properly built houses, but shacks and stuff all along the river and impromptu farms and stuff like that.
And just I'm putting it on the chat now. The article that I kind of referenced, so you can take a look at it. It's pretty cool.
Thanks. Very nice. So this is kind of what I heard. So from what I heard, South Philly used to be a swamp, right?
So, Philadelphia is a swamp, yeah.
So
still is.
So yeah. So, but when they were creating the subway, right? They were digging out the tunnels for the subway, taking that dirt, and they were putting it in South Philly. Right, and kind of leveled out the swamp, making it being able to be inhabited and build homes and stuff. So when they were creating the tunnels for the subway, they had all the equipment on an island called Hog Island, right? And what they would do is the workers would go to Hog Island to get their equipment to dig out the tunnels for the subway, right? But part of working at Hog Island is that you would get for lunch every day, you would get a sandwich, which would be a long roll with meat and cheese on it, right? And this was called a hoggy that then turned into the hoagie. Let me get one of them hoagies. That's what I heard.
That's true. I heard that as well.
So that's some fucking history for you. So it wasn't a sub. It wasn't a hero. It wasn't a grinder. It wasn't a fucking Stugazzo, whatever they call it in shit York. It's a fucking hoagie, all right?
That's right.
Goddamn right. So, nice. All right, so, Frank, man, I know we went a little long here, but, dude, me and Pete are pretty much on board with this all the time, but we would fucking love to have you back on the show.
I'll be back. Come on. Sure, thanks, guys. This was neat.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming on.
This was fucking, I can't thank you enough. This is a great conversation. Obviously, like, our whole mantra on the show, and I've said it a million times, ice cream, man. We view entertainment as ice cream, where there's not just one good flavor of ice cream. There's a million different flavors. And you really you brought so much great shit tonight with like the history and with like the job itself and talking about we had some fun, we had some laughs, we had some sentimental stuff. We had some, just kind of different things that brought it all together. But I really, really enjoyed this conversation. Can't thank you enough for coming on. Before we get out of here, Frank, is there anything you want to say to the listeners before we take off?
I read that list that you gave me, and just to add, in 1980, I was 10. My favorite movie was definitely Empire.
Empire. I never even heard of it.
Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, all right.
My current favorite movie is Goodfellas, and that's like really hard to say that it's not The Godfather 1 or 2, but just
still, Goodfellas.
I don't know about a cop being Empire Strikes Back and Goodfellas, but you know what? It is what it is.
Dude, I'll tell you what. My favorite line from Goodfellas is when you're talking to your buddy and you just go, now go get your fucking shine box. Right? Is that the best fucking line or what? Huh? Now go get your fucking shine box. Is there anything that beats that? That's just the fucking Billy Bats. Can't beat it. So great, man. Dude, Frank, I'll tell you what, dude, can't thank you enough for coming on. This was just such a fucking treat, man. Really great stuff. And honestly, really, we only scratched the surface. We could go on for another 2 hours about, your job and everything you've done and your accomplishments. And really thank you for talking with us and sharing with us, the kind of stuff that we didn't get too in detail, but it is a tough, the police right now is a touchy subject, and it takes some courage for you to come on here and share your story and be able to talk with us, and we really, really do appreciate it, and I think the listeners will appreciate it too, because it gives a really much needed perspective on the police.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you, guys.
Of course, man, of course. Party Boy Pete, anything you want to say to the dozens and dozens before we take off?
Just check out A Day in the Mosh, an old homage to South Philadelphia. The real.
Wait, A Day in the Mosh? So, like, you're saying marsh with an accent? Like a mash. Yeah,
it's some article I came across from like 1881 that was talking about deep South Philly. But when I found out like my grandmother lived here, I was like, well, this is interesting. Like I didn't.
Oh, that's fucking great. All right, well, check it out. A Day in the Life in the Mosh. That sounds pretty nice. All right, so this has been another episode of the Working Perspectives podcast. You can find our podcast on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Working Perspectives Podcast. You can join us on Instagram at Working Perspectives Podcast, and you can follow us on the Twitter and the TikTok at Working P Pod. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, just feel free to email us at workingperspectives@gmail.com. I'm Matt Lavelle. He's Party Boy Pete McCormick. Our guest today was Fighting Frankie Palumbo. This is the end of the show. Stick around for the ad read. All right? Thanks. See ya.
Do you have a message or a story inside of you that you've been waiting to tell? Have you always dreamed of writing a book, but are intimidated by the complexities of the book publishing world? Perhaps you want to use a book to launch your public speaking or consulting career. If so, please reach out to Scott and Bell Publishing, located right here in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Scott and Bell Publishing handle all genres and authors with all experience levels. Scott and Bell Publishing gives authors 100% creative freedom and a higher royalty split. They can be found at www.skotbell.com. That's www.s as in Sam, K as in Kite, O as in October, T as in Tom, B as in Boy, E as in Edward, L as in Larry, L as in Larry.com. That's Scott and Bell Publishing, where the authors go.